an onslaught on over-the-counter cold medications, and they're very scarce in the stores right now. So the one that works for me the best is Mucinex. I don't know if you use Mucinex.
Really love Mucinex. Yep.
Mucinex, pretty good. I mean, I got to say, it kind of busted it up after I finally got a hold of some. But it took me 2 days of searching various stores to find any Mucinex on the shelf. And then when you get there, there's like one packet left, and there's 3 or 4 people descending on it. It looks like an NFL fumble, right? Where you keep digging at the bottom of the pile. No, the Colts got it. No, it looks like the Ravens. Unbelievable.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
And a very pleasant good morning, everybody. Great to be with you here on this fine Tuesday. Jeff DeForest and one Mike Lubitz. I can't believe it, too. We're cruising right through January, last week of January already. Mike Lubitz. We just started 2023. It was yesterday. We were celebrating New Year's and Christmas and Thanksgiving. And we're already getting ready for the holidays again. Just unbelievable. Do you know where you're going for Thanksgiving yet? Yeah, probably the in-laws. Anyway, good to be with you guys. So many things happening. This is, before we get started here with the frivolity and the usual sports stuff, it is amazing to me because, the mass shootings in America, it's just so sick. I don't even know what to say anymore. I'm still like trying to figure out exactly what happened with this Asian guy that shot up the dance hall near Alhambra, California. And now there's another one, and, they're reporting on it, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that was a couple of days ago, wasn't it? And then there was another one like yesterday in near San Francisco. What the fuck is going on out there, people? I don't know. You could rail away about gun control and all of this other stuff. Mental health, obviously, is a very vital issue that needs to be addressed here in the United States of America. The finest facilities, all of the money and the resources in the world. Although we are getting tapped out, huh? Whoever thought America would tap out before I did financially? Unbelievable. Don't mess with my Social Security and my Medicare, okay? You Republican right-wing freaks, MAGA Republican assholes. Don't mess with what I got going on right now. All right, but no, that very sad. And when it's like a daily occurrence, or you get 2, 3 of these in a week, and the numbers are staggering because you can't keep track of that. There are more mass shootings in America this year than there, or not this year, but I guess in 2022, and it might be this year also, than there have been days in the year. How is that possible? And, we just shrug our shoulders and go, it happened again. My God.
It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to happen again. But one part of this country doesn't care. They don't. Well, we care. You don't care. If you don't want to do anything about it, then that means you don't care. It's a simple solution.
Something needs to be tried, at least attempt something. You know what? I don't mind sacrificing some of my own individual liberties if it's for the overall good. That's kind of one of the principles that America was built upon. All right. So if I can't own a gun or whatever, I'm okay with that. I don't need to own a gun. I have no desire to own a gun. Guns have always been somewhat of a fascination. I remember as a kid, right? Cowboys and Indians, you were playing. You had all kinds of fancy guns. You were buying Colt 45 revolvers that were almost exact replicas, but you weren't buying the actual gun when you were 7 years old. And unfortunately, that situation has changed. But mind-boggling. I couldn't keep track of it, Lubie. I'm like, well, what are they reporting on here? The same thing. Again, now 11 people dead in the incident that happened near Los Angeles. And I don't know how many people perished or passed away as a result of this latest abhorrent episode. But, it's a daily occurrence, and it's to the point where we're almost numb to it, right? Just as long as it didn't happen in our neighborhood. And that's it. And it has happened in our neighborhood.
I've yet to talk to anyone about the California one, and this is a second California one. That's like literally.
In a 3-day span. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. All right, we have other things to talk about here, and that's why we stay in the toy department, although you can't ignore reality completely. After a while, you got to come out of your shell, your cocoon, and say, hey, wait a minute, man. It's about time we really started to address this as an overall unified group with an idea that makes some sense, huh? Not just automatically rejecting the ideas of the other party because, in my opinion, the Republicans obviously are just absolutely twisted on this with this whole business about the Second Amendment, which we have said many, many times, and it's absolutely the truth, people. It's just like the NCAA rules regarding amateurism, trying to protect amateurism. They're archaic. They were made at a time where maybe it did make a little bit of sense, but it doesn't anymore. The game and all of the business about all of these games, college basketball and football, has changed completely. You can't be making regulations that are based on stuff that happened 200 years ago when the scene is nothing like that anymore. And it's the same thing with the Second Amendment. I mean, guys were carrying muskets back then.
Well,
Muskets.
there's a lot of comedians that say, look, if you want to have a musket, go for it.
Go for it.
That's the thing. Like, it's not about muskets.
Muskets.
Like, these things are war machines that were never meant to be in a layperson's hand.
Every asshole has an automatic weapon, it seems like.
Yeah, like, come on.
Every nutbag
Makes
has access to it. I mean, there's something wrong with just manufacturing these en masse like that and making them available to the public in general. It's crazy.
No,
And you can't tell me, you can't convince me that you're a law-abiding citizen and you need an automatic weapon as part of your collection of guns. Please, I mean that's enough. All right, let's go to the NBA. Lubie, what do you think? We'll diversify a little bit. We are going to talk a little NBA basketball with one of our favorite experts on the NBA, and that's Sean Devaney later on in the program. That should be happening later on this hour. And John Congemi, gracious enough to juxtapose his usual Monday Pigskin Playbook for Tuesday, so we could accommodate the traveling Tony Segreto, who we hope got out of Vermont in one piece. I guess he was leaving today.
Yeah.
This cat is active, though, Tony Segreto. I have to give it to him, right? I mean, he doesn't mind being isolated out there in Vermont and sitting in a cabin there and having a pancake with a little homemade maple syrup and sitting around. I mean, all day. What do you do all day when it's just snowing outside all day? And he loves it there. I didn't know he had 30 acres of land in Vermont, which he says is like a very small parcel. He's like trailer park trash up there with 30 acres. Can you imagine? Vermont is okay if you just happen to end up there, I guess. I don't know. Do you go out of your way? Remember when skiing was big in America and we got a lot of skiing coverage on Wide World of Sports? And they always had the big build-up for the Olympics every 4 years, and they featured a lot of snow skiing as part of the fanfare there in the anthology show. What was it? It was Stowe? What were some of the other famous, ski courses, resorts in Vermont? Vails, Colorado, right? I mean, Vermont. I'm talking about Vermont.
I don't know Vermont that well.
There were a couple, right? And they used to go there, and you used to know a couple of the people, and that's what you thought of as Vermont. My second wife had family that lived in Vermont, Burlington, Vermont. So I was up there a couple of times. Very nice to visit in the summertime, if you happen to get there. But other than that, who the hell's going there, right? Unless you're like Ben and Jerry. Which I can't believe Jerry went to my high school of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Talk about a success story. Wow. I don't know if anybody thought he was most likely to succeed, but I think he sold out very early with Ben and Jerry's and copped like $30 million. Ben and Jerry's. They started out, they didn't know what to do. They were smoking weed. They just said, let's go somewhere where it's fucking freezing all the time and open up an ice cream store. And you know what? We'll make weird ice cream because nobody's coming in anyway. Right? There's a little Chunky Monkey, a little Cherry Garcia, which I still think to this day, Cherry Garcia might have been my favorite Ben and Jerry's flavor. I don't know. What about you? Did you like some of those double chocolate things with the marshmallow in it?
Food. I always like the fish food. And that's like 12 different things in it. Like there's everything known to man in it. I like that one.
I would have to say that even before Ben and Jerry started experimenting with bizarre flavors, Good Humor was doing this, weren't they? Good Humor was a very experimental, advanced ice cream developer, if you think about it, right? I mean, you think about some of the simple staples there. The vanilla pop, with the chocolate covering was their number one thing. And you saw that, I mean, with that bite out of it, the cross-section of the vanilla pop that was on the side of the Good Humor truck. Tell me you didn't want to buy an ice cream no matter what every time this guys start ringing the fucking bells. And everybody like, Ma, I need money, Ma. I think it was like 15 cents for an ice cream. But remember they had that one thing which had the like chocolate bar in the middle of it. That was a weird one. And I forget what the outside consisted of, but, and it had like a thick chocolate thing in the middle that you could break your teeth on. That was an unusual one. The banana split was still my favorite of all time. The banana split, Good Humor, and it was like a pop, but it had, banana flavoring and cherry and all kinds of stuff. That was absolutely delicious. But one of my weaknesses, believe it or not, was the simplicity of the toasted almond pop. You remember the toasted almond?
I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that.
You weren't a Good Humor guy, huh? Florida has weird ice cream guys. I mean, it's pedophile city, isn't it? When you see the ice cream guy, he has a nondescript truck that is unlike any other. I mean, I guess these were original food trucks in some ways, but and they're selling like weird stuff. Nothing that would be consistent with anything that you would be familiar with. Rocket pops and this and that. I mean, all kinds of weird stuff. And there's one guy, he still is around on A1A. I pass him on my walk of life, which I resumed yesterday. Boy, I was a struggle 2 days ago. I picked it back up at the 4 miles. I figured just get right back into it. Don't even bother. Like, I went a mile the first day just to test the foot out, and then 2 miles the next day, 3 miles the next day. And then I ended up skipping a day because I went to a degenerate gambling binge all day on Saturday. And by the time I got back, I was too depressed to walk. But last couple of days, I did go to 4, but I staggered around there yesterday, Lubie. You know what happens when you get out of shape and you get that, not necessarily the first time that, I don't know, would you call walking a workout of some sort? I don't know that it's a workout. Think about that. Imagine how far we've fallen. Used to play like 8 hours of basketball and go play like touch football after that. And now, walking is considered, monumental exercise, right?
You do miles, it's an exercise.
4 miles is a decent, length of walk, no? I mean, even at the slowest of paces, I mean, we're talking about snail's pace minus to an exponent of whatever. But, and that's while trying to figure out if my foot's okay, which I'll find out more about today. So, but anyway, no impediment. It really wasn't. I mean, a little bit of soreness, but that's about it. But wow, I staggered home yesterday, Lubie, and then sucked down a Budweiser, as was my habit. And I forgot how good that was, that ice cold Budweiser in a frozen mug after any kind of exercise whatsoever. Still the number one choice when it comes to beers. Why am I seeing Mayo making a face, right?
Every beer person.
He doesn't like anything ordinary. No, he really doesn't. He can't accept that like ordinary is good sometimes, right? Simplicity is bliss, is it not? As it is when you're rooting for and, trying to assess your sports teams, which I know we'll get into this with Congemi, and I wanted to get into some NBA stuff here, although I don't really have any great depth on the NBA, except that Boston had its 9-game winning streak snapped last night by the Orlando Magic, which I think, is this not true, Lubie? Check this out, true or false. Did Boston not have a previous 9-game winning streak that was also snapped by the Orlando Magic, the lowly Orlando Magic?
I don't know.
No?
Yeah,
is that possible?
That much, maybe. Yeah, I mean,
I think that was their second 9-game winning streak of the year. I might be wrong about that, but I thought I saw that somewhere. And this one snapped, and they got hammered by the Orlando Magic, 113-98 last night. Milwaukee got back to Greek and Middleton, Chris Middleton. And wow, we talked with Grant Long earlier this week. I love Grant Long, by the way. He's great when it comes to talking about the National Basketball Association, both past and present. Milwaukee gets Middleton and the Greek back, and he put up 150 on Detroit last night. 150. And then that was one of 2 games that were in that neighborhood. As you had Portland, which I think this was the most points they scored in a game since like 2009 or something, puts up 147 on San Antonio. Wow. I mean, if they're shooting, 100 threes a game and they happen to be hot enough to even complete, or make 50% of them, you're going to get some of these totals. But, wow, 147 in the Portland game, 150 in the Milwaukee game. Defense, obviously, a stress point of NBA coaches at this point. Popovich has to be ready. I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot of hair left, Popovich, but he's got to be ready to pull what's left of it out, right? That one strand. And he is morphing into Donald Sutherland, the actor. I don't even know if he's morphing into it. I think he is Donald Sutherland, the actor. If you look at Greg Popovich, great coach, Hall of Fame, obviously, and, deserving of all the accolades for that run that he had. I mean, luck notwithstanding, where they, lucked out and had the Admiral at the same time as they had who was
drafted
Tim Duncan. Yeah, Tim Duncan.
Robinson got hurt.
Yeah.
And then they somehow ended up with the number 1 pick.
Number 1 pick, and they got Duncan.
Yes.
Right. So they had Twin Towers there of some real significance.
The next 20 years.
Yes. Who was it? Was it Olajuwon and Sampson were the Twin Towers? Who were the Twin Towers? Olajuwon and Sampson with the Rockets?
Houston, yeah, with Houston.
Yeah, okay.
Never lived up to.
Sampson, wasn't as great a pro player as you thought that he might be.
Didn't he have injury? I think he got injured young, and then he never was able to regain himself.
Yeah, Ralph Sampson, but not David Sampson, who obviously plagued the South Florida sports scene for a long, long time, and
Not him.
at midget level height, probably would not have been much of a basketball player, unless, of course, he was Muggsy Bogues or Monty Tao. Yeah, Portland puts up 147. Sacramento, wow, I mean, they're writing a heck of a story this year, Lubie. Sacramento, a basketball purgatory. We asked Grant Long about playing in Sacramento, and he made a face right away. We could see it, even though he was only on the phone with us. Nobody wanted to go to Sacramento to play basketball. And Sacramento is a shithole of a town. I mean, you say, hey, I'm living in California. And the guy says, where? L.A., San Fran, San Diego? Where are you living? And the guy says, Sacramento. And you go,
Yeah, you make a face.
you poor, sorry fuck.
Like, of all the places to live.
What a cow town, man. It's in the middle of nowhere, man. For some reason, I don't know. I mean, there were a lot of newspapers, daily newspapers in California. In fact, that was one good thing about starting out my, you could call it a career there, was there was a radio station virtually in every town and a newspaper in every town, no matter how small the town. Where I started in Fontana, and this is a suburb of L.A., but the newspaper circulation, it only came out 6 days a week, no Sunday paper, and it had a 5,000 circulation, 5,000. Which was the whole town. I mean, everybody got the paper. So, but it wasn't uncommon for a guy to come in literally with like little Johnny, and he would have a string of perch on like a fish ringer. And he would come in and insist that you publish a picture of little Johnny with the fish as part of the sports section. I looked at that and I immediately started putting together my resume. And it was Santos-esque, I can assure you, with a ton of experience associated with it. There was a newspaper in every town. And at one time I aspired, because I was working for this small schminky newspaper, so you wanted to get to any other newspaper that was larger, which I eventually, it wasn't really my favorite move, but at least it was a move up. And I ended up writing for this paper called the Ontario Daily Report, which there's another example. I mean, they had a newspaper in every town. This was like the next town over, Lubie. And it had like a 30,000 circulation. So to me, that was like getting a job at the LA Times. But the Sacramento Bee was one of the newspapers that you would routinely apply to, thinking, wow, I want to go to the big time here, the Sacramento Bee. And then, you would do a little research, like maybe drive through there and see if you could ever live there. And the answer was a flat out no. Only Kevin Johnson, the former Phoenix Sun, soon to be a disgraced political figure, could possibly live in Sacramento by choice. Nobody else could do it. Remember our program director went up there for a while that we had at IOD.
Our favorite.
Sacramento. Yeah. Got out of there as fast as he could.
Yeah.
That guy gets around, huh? Ken Charles?
He just got another job.
Like in Atlanta, like a big job, WSB. Yeah. Did we go wrong by not getting into radio management? No, not that Ken was inept. He kind of knew what he was doing. I mean, and if he wasn't such a micromanager, he probably would have been. He left us a little bit alone, although he was leaving shortly after we got hired. But he was the guy that told me that no interview, think about this for a sports talk show, no interview should be longer than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That people don't pay attention. So you're going to have Pat Riley call in, right? You finally got Pat Riley. Tim Donovan got back to you after 2 years of messages. And, Pat Riley consents to do an interview. And you're going to go, hey, Pat, how you doing? He's going to go, I'm doing great. Talk for 3 minutes. And you go, hey, thanks, Pat. That was a great interview. I mean, can you imagine? Well, what the hell is this guy? And this guy is top notch. He ended up going to KNX, I believe, in Los Angeles, which is one of the big news stations out there for years. Left there and got a job WSB, which is the number one, it's a conglomerate there in Atlanta, right? Holy Chuck Dowdle. Everybody that's in Atlanta is wanting to work at WSB. But if you're in radio management, you didn't really have to have great ideas to be successful. You didn't have to have any ideas. You just, sit there and tell everybody they suck.
I was going to say is I never understood what they were graded on, because like the numbers would always plummet and then they would get promotions. I'm like, okay. So what do you?
Yeah, they become district managers.
What means you're doing well and what means you're doing bad then? Like, I don't understand.
Used to live and die by that ratings book, man. It would come out and, people were on literally on razor's edge thinking, uh-oh, what if it went down? And then it would finally, you'd get a good number and it was like, see, I told you I was great. It's all bullshit.
Yeah,
it really is. All right. Your Heat doing okay, right? I mean, you can't complain about that. What are they, 26 and 22, something like that? I don't know if they played again since the last time I looked at the standings. But, hanging in there, number 6 seed they were, and they're close to moving up from that spot. They haven't played their best basketball of the season yet by any stretch. They haven't had their team together very often.
Nope.
So sort of encouraging on the local end. I don't see the Heat as a championship caliber team. I mean, other teams have played better overall throughout the entire season, not just even short stretches. Boston obviously has been among the best, if not the best team in basketball all year long, and seemed to have. I mean, remember, it wasn't that long ago. We'll talk to Sean Devaney about this. It was less than a year ago. Everybody said that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum could not coexist on the team, and now they're both getting like 40 a night and having a great time, right? I don't know. They probably will attend each other's kids' bar mitzvahs. That's how close they are. But I mean, remember that was a great theory by sportscasters. Jaylen Brown, one of them's got to go, and obviously weren't going to trade Tatum, so the Celtics supposedly were in the market or in the mood to trade Jaylen Brown if they were ever going to be successful.
Supposedly after making a finals run all season, because they were in the Kevin Durant sweeps.
Yeah,
like they weren't heavily in like the Heat, but they were tertiary team trying to maybe get Durant, and Brown was a centerpiece. So, and supposedly Brown was never happy about that, which no player is.
Would be, right? I mean, you feel disrespected at that point. Disrespected.
Well,
like Saquon Barkley might with the Giants. They've announced the Giants kind of have sort of implied their intentions are. They're definitely keeping Daniel Jones. He's going nowhere. The franchise tag on a quarterback, you know what it is, Lubie? If you franchise tag a quarterback, no matter how mediocre.
It's a $30 million.
Very good. $32 million.
Yeah.
$32 million. You have to pay a guy that you're not sure about $32 million to be with your club for 1 year and piss him off in the process.
Well, the funny thing is, I would do that over some of these deals. Look at Dak. Now you're stuck with Dak, and he's an average quarterback.
$40 million a year for Dak Prescott. Imagine.
Kyler Murray is literally a head case that has not improved his game at all. He has some flashes, but he's not gotten any better. He doesn't take anything seriously. You're stuck with him. Kirk Cousins, same thing. Like you have all these average.
Deshaun Watson may fall into that category at this point.
Well, Watson, we don't know if he's going to figure it out. Like to overpay for an average guy, I'd rather just franchise tag for a year or two and just see, because that's the Daniel Jones reeks of Ryan Tannehill to me. Like he's better than I gave him credit, but he's not good. Like,
I mean, you really want to give this guy like $160 million for the next 4 years?
You
guarantee all of it.
Do it. Once you start doing it, you don't get to sign other players. Once you give them a big deal, that's when everything goes to shit.
Well, you also have to look at your coaching staff, too. I mean, think about this. How is it that San Francisco, the 49ers, with Kyle Shanahan, who, is known for one of the biggest bungles in the history of coaching, when, as offensive coordinator there with, the Falcons, he, completely, took the running game out of play and lost the Super Bowl. Then he goes to San Francisco. He's done very well there. I mean, they're a well-accomplished team under Kyle Shanahan. And and you could say the same thing, I guess, about Andy Reid. Andy Reid has done this his whole career, where some schlep backup has come in and made a name for himself. Here's Chad Henne, 15 years in the league of total non-distinction, 15 meaningless years of playing professional football, except for the fact that he's getting paid, and somehow is good enough to at least make these rosters. Can't take that away from the guy. Because, they could go with some young guy or whatever, but they choose to stick with a 15-year veteran. And all of a sudden, he's pressed into service in like a startling circumstance here. You're going for the chance to play in the AFC title game, and Mahomes is hurt. Are you kidding me? And what is the drop-off from Patrick Mahomes to Chad Henne? In just, general public opinion about these guys' play. What would it be? I mean, you're thinking, my God. They've gone from the best in the game to a veritable, vagabond bag lady.
Yes, because he's not even a good backup. Like, again, you said it. None of us knew he was in the league still.
Yeah, I did not know that until a few weeks ago when I saw him substitute for an injured Mahomes who left the game for a couple of plays, and in comes Chad Henne. They might have, put Henne in, even in the game late in garbage time in a blowout. But I'm looking, I'm going, wait a minute, Henne, how is that possible that this guy's still around? It seems like we were ripping him 15 years ago when he was with the Miami Dolphins as check down Chad.
It was when we started doing shows, was when Henne was with the Dolphins.
My God. But certain coaches, I mean, think about this. Brock Purdy could come in and do the same things, if not better, than Jimmy Garoppolo. And, it's amazing that certain coaches can plug quarterbacks into any situation, regardless. I mean, what you don't necessarily have to pay a guy $50 million if you have a great coaching staff. And the point production has increased with Brock Purdy, even though by no means does he look like he's great, does he? I mean,
No.
I know he's winning games, but you were watching that game against Dallas. I mean, he was just as much, of a vulnerable liability as Dak Prescott was, although Dak actually threw a couple of picks, whereas Purdy got away with a couple.
Yes.
He got away with at least 2 throws that were in the hands of Dallas defensive backs. I mean, clearly, you wouldn't even define these as catchable balls. I mean, I always love it when, the color announcer says, that's a ball that's got to be caught. They don't necessarily say that about defensive backs. I mean, ball hits you right in the hands. And it's not like you turned around and, there it was in your face. I mean, you're talking about if you're a defensive back, aren't you looking to pick balls off? Aren't you thinking, wow, I mean, that's as much my ball as it is, the receivers. I'm not going to just sit there, turn my back and run and then hope by going, here, your mother. That they don't call pass interference when the pass falls a little bit short and you annihilate the guy and then look around like, well, I do nothing. How about covering a guy with the idea that the ball is yours? It's in the air there. It may as well be thrown to you. Amazing how poor the hands are on defensive backs, and that has been consistent throughout.
Always.
It seems like the entire history of the National Football League, but you would think, maybe that would be an area of improvement. No, I mean, they have those things that, what is that? The jugs gun? Or not the jugs gun. But what do they call those machines? Yeah.
I don't know what it's called. That fires the ball.
Yeah. Fires a ball from point blank range, like they're shooting a cannonball into your stomach in a circus.
And they the same gloves that the receivers wear that have stickum on them. The cornerbacks have too. I'm like, and I get it with pitchers. Like you grow up being a really good hitter, but then you stopped hitting a lot when you're a pitcher. So even if you were a good hitter, eventually your hitting suffers. So I guess if you're a defensive back for 10 years, eventually, but I don't know. I grew up being really good at catching a football, and if I play football daily, I'm so good at catching a football. I never got that one where that's why he's a defensive back. I'm like, what do you mean? What was so hard about that? He should have caught the ball.
These are optimum plays. These are game-changing plays if you can make them. So, I mean, there's really no excuse. I mean, for the guy to be hitting the ground constantly, and how many times have you seen it? A frustrated defensive back, a linebacker, that's one thing. Maybe the guy's not as accustomed to being in coverage. But when you're used to you're running just like a receiver, I'm thinking that ball's thrown to me if I'm covering somebody. And I want to catch it. And, you get your hands on it. Excuse me. And I'm thinking, just like any wide receiver, if you can get a finger on the ball, you should be able to bring it in.
One, so many times, like the Diggs one, they end up scoring right after. You have the interception, you don't get it. Okay, 2 plays later, touchdown.
Right.
Dude, if you just got the
interception. You can't let teams off the hook like that. You're absolutely right. I don't know why that isn't more of a point of emphasis. And the announcers always shill for these guys and go, he's a defensive back. It's like he shouldn't be on the field if he can't catch that fucking ball. Are you kidding me?
Exactly. Like the D line, it's so funny, and you'll see D linemen snag them. I'm like, okay, so why did the D linemen able to snag it?
Exactly.
Pound man who you would think is a clod, but a lot of them they're not. They're move like ballerinas. But the defensive back, who for sure does tip drills and all these things, why is
practicing this all the time?
I don't get it.
And if you were lousy at catching a ball, wouldn't you just stand there in front of that machine and catch 100 passes, all different angles, every day before you left practice, just like the guys that can't make free throws? All right, we mentioned some NBA stuff. We're going to talk to Sean Devaney here in just a few minutes on the program, right? What'd you say, 7:40 or so?
7:45.
Okay, very good. And then we're also going to have John Congemi on with his Pigskin Playbook. Duke, anytime Duke is involved in a close game, I tune in because I want to see them lose. And what's the guy's name? Is it Shire? Is that the name of the new Duke coach?
John Shire. Yeah.
John Shire. Okay. If Coach K is coaching last night, Virginia Tech loses this game on one of the most bogus calls that you would ever see. And I know they looked at this and, it was one of those things where you're thinking, my God, they're not really going to call a flagrant foul on this poor kid. Virginia Tech makes a key basket late in the game. I believe there were 13 seconds to go in a ball game. And Virginia Tech was in a dead heat at that point. Duke had just tied the game. What's the guy's name? Is it Potter? He's one of the Duke guards, and he cans a three. Virginia Tech was sort of they were not really seesawing, but they were seesawing back and forth between like a 1 and a 3-point lead with Virginia Tech. Proctor, yeah. He cans a three and ties the game with about, I guess, like 35 seconds to go, something like that. So they weren't going to be able to, it might have been 40, but they weren't going to be able to run out all the time. And obviously Virginia Tech in a tie game was going to take a shot as late as they could in the shot clock and, try and leave Duke, if they didn't make the basket, try and leave them like 10 seconds, 12 seconds to make a basket. And a guy makes a shot, and as he turns around, I mean, literally, Lubie, he turns around and he has his hand in the air after making a shot. And as he turns around, Filipowski is standing there on the defensive end, Filipowski. But he's standing right there. I mean, the guy immediately turned around and hit Filipowski in the face with a raised fist from, celebrating the basket. So nobody really notices this except Filipowski stops at that end of the court. He's holding his throat like he just got, karate chopped in the Adam's apple and is acting like he can't breathe. Okay. Now, when he first got hit, his head snapped back. And yet when you watch the replays, Zapruder film style, I don't even know if he got touched. I'm not sure.
Like, that's so funny. Like, it's like they're trained. Like, I was helping coach my nephew's soccer team a couple games, and I'm watching the other teams, and like these kids, there would be no contact, or sometimes there would be contact, and they would flail their body, and then they'd lay there.
Yeah.
And then when the ref, because it's not major league, so they don't get anything, the refs don't give a shit, they'd go, oh, and then they get up and run. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, are they teaching
it's soccer? Yeah.
Youth soccer? And my brother-in-law was like, who's my nephew's dad, was like, no, he really got him hard. I'm like, dude, he got up and ran. No matter how hard he got him.
Yeah.
You're gotten hard. You don't get up and run. So he obviously was acting. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, I never teach my kids to do any of this stuff. I'm like, these coaches really teach them, look, if he's around you, flail. I'm like who
you used to get hit in the nose with an elbow that moved your nose to the side of your face. You look like Larry Zonka. You wouldn't even call nothing. I mean, just shake it off.
You would feel like a jerk off.
That was the background in the parks.
When you would call foul, everyone would go, I don't see any blood.
Well, what is wrong with you? Yeah, exactly. I got it. There was always that guy that was screaming, I got it, as he went up with the shot, even though you were nowhere near him. I got it. It's like, you got what, man? You got zits. That's what you got. They had, I believe, called a flop, and it might have been on this very same Proctor earlier in the game, and they awarded a free throw to Virginia Tech, which obviously turned out to be crucial since they made that free throw and they won the ball game by 2 points. But then Proctor bricked a three later on. It amazes me, like if you're a good enough sharp shooting, 3-point shooter on the college level, no less, where it's like 19 feet from the basket, a nothing shot. This is the kind of shot that you warm up with. No, seriously. I mean, the 3-point shot in high school and college to me is like the most bogus thing I've ever seen. It's an easy shot. I mean, for any shooter, anything 20 feet is a fairly simple shot. I mean, once you get out to 25, now you're talking a little bit of a chuck here. No, it's not like you can go up with your nice, easy form like you're shooting a free throw. But don't you think like Duke should have a guy that can knock down like 5, 6, 7 in a row? Where are those guys, Lubie? I mean, the guy makes a three and put him, back into the ball game, tied the game, and then comes down and he has a wide open three for the next one, and it's a brick. And I'm thinking, that guy's on Duke. I mean, he was recruited by Duke. Obviously, anybody could miss a shot, but it's not like, you were watching this guy hoist him and you're thinking, my God, holy Cassie Russell, this guy doesn't miss. Where are those guys that just don't miss from 3-point range on the college level? They have to be out there, no? I mean, you used to see it with like Steve Alford and some of these other guys that were 3-point chuckers. Rick Mount. He missed a lot of shots, but, he hoisted a lot.
We had shooters since Rick Mount.
No, but I mean, guys that just don't miss. Where are those guys? How does Duke not have one of those guys?
They usually do. They usually have.
They're going to play like a 6'1" guy. I mean, shouldn't this guy like never miss? Just so reliable, so consistent. It's like, no, don't give this guy a shot. Put somebody on and put him on. Make sure box and one, whatever you want to do. Follow this guy. The old Lubie defense, the reverse triangle in two. I still love that one when Ron Rothstein analyzed that as if it was a legitimate defense. That was.
It gave me some credit. I mean,
But yeah, I mean, you see kids at the park, they knock down like 8 in a row, right? I mean, you were surprised when you missed one. So you would think that these big time college programs would have guys that were extremely reliable on wide open 3-point shots. No, and yet it doesn't happen. In the pros now, everybody's chucking threes. So I mean, you're not necessarily thinking that geez, my Antetokounmpo just missed 2 in a row. But what's he doing out there in the first place? You're asking yourself. Whereas, I mean, some guy that's like a 6'1", 6'2" guard on the Duke Blue Devils that's starting and getting a lot of playing time, that guy should never miss. That's my belief. Should be shooting well over 50% from 3-point range, and you hardly ever have a guy in the country. I think the number 2 guy in the country is shooting like 45% from 3-point range, which as an open shooter, I think that's above a 50% shot. No, what do you think, Louie? A 3-point shot. It's not a big deal on the college or the high school level. All right, we were going to get into this a little bit, but I don't know what to make of this, Louie. I wanted to branch out here a little bit, and we've ignored this because your Miami Marlins have made a couple of acquisitions that would normally be considered somewhat significant, no? Except that it's the Marlins doing it, so nobody gives a flying one because we know it's not going to work out. But they acquired the guy that beat Aaron Judge out for the batting title last year, Luis Arias, from the Minnesota Twins. So they got the American League batting champion. They traded Pablo Lopez and a couple of prospects for Arias. And now we know they couldn't hit a lick last year. I don't think you're going to win the majority of your games when your team batting average is .212. And it's not like you have Kingman-esque power to go along with that. You have no power hitters, and you can't hit for average, and you strike out a lot, and rarely have guys on base. John Birdie is occasionally on base with like a bunt. And he steals. That's it. And they get Yuli Gurriel from the Houston Astros.
They finished the Gurriel deal. That's when they've been working out.
Oh, it hasn't happened yet? Officially?
I don't know. I'm asking you. They may have. They were.
I thought they made that acquisition.
They were in talks where it seemed like it was inevitable, but I hadn't seen it finalized. So maybe it was. I mean.
So what do you make of it? Anything? I mean, is it
these are solid moves? But remember, they did it last year where they got the World Series MVP.
They got that guy Soler and a couple of other guys, but I mean, none of them did squat. I mean,
that's my problem. I'm concerned. A lot of people are really excited. They made a trade of a position of depth. In the minors, they supposed to have like 4 or 5 pitchers that are freaking insane. Your boy Sixto was
Is Sixto back? What's going on with that?
Suppose they look good, so it gave them room to move on from one of their pitchers. And they need a bat, and this guy is 2 or 3 years in a row now. He's hit really well the entire year.
Oh, Arias has to be legit, man. I mean, because he wore down Judge in the batting title race. He really did. I mean, he pulled away by like 5-6 points at the end. Judge seemed to be pressing to hit number 62.
And Jazz can move to center, and Jazz is an athlete, so you would gain in center field. So that's almost like a twofer. So that's wonderful. That would be cool. And you add Gurriel, that gives you some depth.
At least you have a few guys in the lineup that can hit for average.
I just never know with them. Like, they make these moves, and it's like, oh, good for them. And then it's like, oh. The guy.
Well, I mean, if this pitching, we've been hearing about it for 20 years now. I mean, these pitching prospects. I remember when I thought Jose Urena was going to win the Cy Young Award.
Yes, I remember very well.
Where is he now? Is he with the Twins? I don't even know.
I don't know.
Jose Urena. He was floating around the league. Not doing much of any significance, and I thought he had the stuff to be really, really good. Sixto Sanchez, I remember Mike Hill. My God, I still remember that. So, certain times that we talked to people, and they were talking whatever in conversation about various players or developments with regard to their team, sort of still stick out to me from our radio days. And I remember Mike Hill, and we wanted to like Mike Hill, even though. What was there? The feeling that Mike Hill was, I don't know, sort of a figurehead there especially during Jeter's time. I don't think Jeter really let Mike Hill do much, although he spoke highly of him. But he eventually canned the guy and brought in Kim Ng, who we're not sure what to make of her tenure here so far. She's tried a few things. She tried a couple of things last year. It didn't work. But is she working with a full deck like other GMs might be? I
don't know.
That remains unsure. She would have to be extremely Billy Bean type of clever.
Yeah,
to make this work, and very few people can do it. Yeah,
and I'm not going to treat, and I'm not trying to be sexist or not sexist. I'm trying to treat her like I treat any other GM.
Yeah,
had been in baseball for like 20 years. She had been around. She knew what she was doing. So she was supposed to be able to come in and make salad out of chicken salad.
Could be a hopeless situation, though. That's possible.
And I get it, but other organizations have figured it out where with low payrolls, they find a way.
Yeah.
They have good management. She was
well, the Tampa Bay Rays being a classic example.
Yeah, then they spend less money. We spend more money than them. Like,
and they have less support, believe it or not. That's hard to imagine.
Even less fans.
Yeah.
People at least talk about the Marlins around here. Like, I've been to Tampa. They talk about the Bucks.
Disaster.
And that's it. They don't talk about the Rays. They don't give a shit about the Lightning. They talk about the Lightning and they talk about the Bucks. They don't talk about the Rays. Like, are you kidding?
I don't know that I would agree with that 100%.
Okay, because I've been there and I have never heard anyone talk Rays.
No one goes to the games. Yeah, nobody goes. I think the Tampa sports fan is kind of a good low-key sports fan.
Maybe.
They really like their teams. I don't know. I mean, obviously, they don't support the Rays to any level whatsoever. So, your point would be the more apparent one to line up with. I do remember being surprised a couple of times while in Tampa for whatever reason. I can't remember the last time what the reason was. We were up there for that stupid convention that they sent us to where we were going to learn how to do radio after 40 years. Not that you can't always learn something new, but I mean, come on, man. I mean, we got guys that are in the business 3 years telling us, how to run a show. And then I'm thinking, wow, our show has to blow away anything that these guys have ever attempted.
Well, that was my problem is like, I don't mind those things because we don't always.
Social media and getting clicks and all that is not our game. I mean, obviously.
The modern world I'm trying now, but wasn't always our thing. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, maybe they'll tell us some of the stuff that I was dating Shirley at the time, my girlfriend's talking about. My problem was they were trying tactics you used to do in the 80s.
Yeah.
And you're like, who still goes to games and where's a chicken? Like, who still does these
interviewing fans for their reaction before the game. And then putting together a collage of, hey, we're going to beat the fuck out of them.
Like, we're in South Florida, guys. Like, they don't give a shit.
This is big time stuff. I mean, hopefully, not that we're above these sort of things, but
no, but I mean,
it was foolishness, is what it was.
Like,
and then these guys were so serious, and you could tell that. How about going on the air and entertaining people? That would be the way to fix your radio problem.
Never talked about content. Content was never discussed.
Never discussed, right? I mean, how about good conversations with intelligent people, and and a little bit of insight from the years and years of experience that you have. Why don't you just try bringing that to the table instead of some formula? Well, you know what? Contrived debates really are the selling point now of sports talk. Right, because all of these people have convinced themselves that that's the way to do it, right? Who's the better quarterback, Marino or Montana? I don't know. You tell me. Well, Joe's got the rings. What does Danny Boy have? He had a rocket fucking arm. That's what he had. And a competitive will that was, obviously Montana was very competitive. All right, we're going to talk some buckets here. Australian Open, an upset of sorts, although I always liked Vika Azarenka as a player. But her day of prominence was, wow. I mean, I believe she won the 2009, is it possible? 2009, 2010 Australian Open. She has a couple of slams there at the Australian Open and was given up for, finished. El Finito. Had a baby. She had this weird kind of rock star boyfriend. What was the guy's name? It was like Redfoot or something. You remember this guy? He had big red hair. Don King-like. No? Anyway, he was some kind of musical entity that I had never really heard of, but he was always there at Azarenka's matches. And she just fell completely apart. Apparently, this guy was a real asshole, treated her badly. I mean, that's what I remember of the story. And she fell into, some real hard times, but just loves the game. I remember seeing an interview with her, and I thought, wow, that's the way to approach anything that you do. She says she loves everything about the game. She even loves the smell of the fucking tennis ball. Okay? You remember when you felt that way? Like you got a new mitt and you love the fact that your hands still smelled of leather after playing baseball all day.
Yeah, new basketball. I remember that. New basketball had a smell to it. Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, you just liked everything about the game. You like the way you schwitzed it. You like playing.
The gym, yeah. The sneakers.
The gym lights, the squeaking of the sneakers. I mean, all of that stuff. So I remember watching her saying how much she loved the game and, into this minute detail. And I thought, wow, because they were asking her why she was motivated to come back after all of this stuff that had happened to her. And she knocked off your girl, Jessica Pegula, last night.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
That's a girl. Oh, wow.
did it easily also. So she that was in the quarterfinals. So she's made it to the semifinals, I believe, of the Australian Open. Victoria Azarenka, who really was I mean, owned it. Everybody's all over this Andy Murray story and comeback, but I think this is significant because she was, really just finished a while back. All right, Sean Devaney going to join us here in just a sec, and we'll come back with that in a moment. Hialeah Park handicapping. If you haven't entered the contest, it's Sunday. Get involved. I mean, I think Mike Mayo's going to give it a go, and that's great. Yeah, he absolutely should. I mean, he has a chance to win it. He does have his handicapping theories, and comes up with occasional bomber-rooskies.
Solid,
So, yeah. So I give him a shot, and that'll be great, man. I mean. I was just like a passenger on this trip, and I had a blast going to the NHC. So you can win a seat to the NHC, and it's accommodations for two, right? So you can, maybe you're partnered up in the tournament. You each handed up $250. One guy plays, the other guy says, "You better hit a winner soon, there, Joe." Huh? I got 6 winners today. You got nothing. But and it's rooms for two and airfare for two. To go to Bally's in Las Vegas for the NHC, which I believe happens like mid-February, somewhere in there. Chance to win like $800,000. You keep your own $300 in your bankroll. $200 goes to the administrative fees, including the prize fund. So you can cash one of the prizes, and if you happen to do that, you're probably a winner anyway. Walk out of there a big winner, and if you win the whole shebang, as our friend Don't Mention My Name did a couple of years ago, when last time they had it, off to Las Vegas for one of the great events that you could possibly get involved in, the National Handicapping Championship. Get your entry form at hialeahpark.com and get out there on Sunday and enter the satellite, the feeder tournament to the NHC happening at Hialeah Park. All right, we're coming back with Sean Devaney, talking some baskets in just a moment. Now that.
The time.
7:48. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Of course, I got in about 2 a.m. last night. Do I look like Lubie? Good morning, by the way.
You look
do I
good.
look like I need a cut, man?
You look good. I'm proud of you. You're like ready. You're on time. All the guys there didn't have to stress out waiting for you. Look at you. A new day.
I'm a professional. There's no question about it. And I don't like to lose a job on the first day of the job.
That'd be good.
Which is ugly. Because we already lost one job, and we got fired by Fox. And in fact, you and I, Lubie, are the only starters that were ever beaten out for a job by Brady Quinn. If you can kind of wrap your arms around that concept.
Grab a bagel and a schmear, plus some Defo and Lubie. Welcome back to the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie's here, South Florida Live. Great to be with you on the Defo Show. And we welcome to the program one of our favorites. We want to get right to him here. As always, a lot of stuff cooking, and we tried to touch on some things in the NBA at the top of the program. But nobody better to explore all of these different things and theories with than Sean Devaney of Heavy.com, longtime NBA writer and a good friend of the program, or at least we consider him one, and hopefully he feels the same. Sean, how are you, my friend? Good to have you on the show.
So it's a great intro.
He's not there? Okay.
Keep it till 9. I forgot he actually has daughter drop off between 7:30 and 8, and then from 8 to 9 we have Congemi. So we're gonna have on at 9. Sorry about that, folks.
All right.
Mr. DeForest.
Postponed due to rain. Okay.
We usually have him on at that time, and I just put it in my calendar for that. And he just reminded me I can't do it till 9. I said, "Oh, okay." So at 9, we're gonna go a little bit longer.
So I should have ignored your note. Let's break Devaney next.
Yeah. And then
then you came back with a couple of things, but I didn't see him. Yeah.
Yes. I feel bad. That was a great intro, so we can.
Well, we'll just replay it. Yeah. and I actually shortchanged the guy on the usual intro because I figured we're only going to have 10 minutes with this guy. I don't want to tease John Congemi out of his segment on the show here because we love John too. So that'll be great. All right. I mean, we did spark a little bit of debate, which is interesting here among our chat line people about this Kim Eng thing. There are a couple of things to consider. Now, if she was if she was a male general manager, and I don't see this as a sexist thing either, Lubie. My hope is always that when somebody is brought in to do a job in a capacity where they're influential on a team that I either have some kind of interest in because we cover the team all the time, I would find myself rooting for the Marlins if they were ever any good, because we've staggered around with this team for a while. They have provided, at least 97 was, one of the all-time, it was a MasterCard thrilling moment for me. As I've said many times, I offered my son Jesse, who at that time in 97 was 14 or thereabouts. And I told him, I said, I had 2 seats, 10 rows behind the screen at home plate, lower ball. This was at when they were playing at Hard Rock Stadium. These were as good a pair of seats as you could possibly have.
Those are great seats. Behind home plate is the best view. You can see
everything. Oh my God, these were great seats. We had them as season tickets. We bought them the first year. I believe we might have done a couple of favors for the guy that, and these were legitimate favors for the guy that was. Involved in some of the what they have, like a lottery drawing to see who got what seats. And, normally I would get completely shafted in this situation. Well, what was the name of the guy that was Huizinga's henchman who was the president of the team?
Smiley? Wasn't it president?
Yeah, Smiley. Yeah. We had made a couple of video, things for the Marlins in our capacity. We were working with Sunshine Network at the time. And I guess he reciprocated by in the 93 season. I want to assume that, we didn't get these seats by arbitrary luck of the draw. All right. Believe it or not, for these tickets, the price, what the face value was on these tickets, not for the World Series game. I think that was like $75. But the face value for the regular season games, 10 rows behind home plate. They had the founder seats were the first, were first 8 rows. And we were 2 rows behind the founder seat, which you had to pay a premium for. There was like, personal licensing, a seat licensing deal with the founder seats there. You literally could see the spin on the ball as it came in. I mean, if Al Leiter was throwing a curveball, you knew it because you could see the drop and everything. It was absolutely fantastic. $14.50 for the face value on those tickets when I first got them.
Are you kidding me?
That was 93.
Okay, I guess.
All right. So anyway, I end up with the World Series Game 7 tickets, and I was going to take my son. And, I'm a giant baseball fan at the time, and I loved covering baseball. It was one of my dreams, obviously, to be involved in baseball as some kind of professional career. You were thinking maybe as a player, but that was a very short-lived dream. As soon as I gave up those 7 runs in my first third of an inning pitching for the Syracuse freshmen and realized, man, these fucking guys can hit. Probably shouldn't have been smoking so much weed at the time. But you going to throw another changeup in there, Defo? What are you going to do, man? Why don't you rear back and fire one? You used to have a fastball. You just become too lazy to throw it. It's like, fuck this. Do you lose your no? You don't lose your competitive desire when you smoke a lot of weed. I became.
So I was still. I mean, I don't know.
We were like passing joints on the bench there. It was fantastic. It's literally like Bad News Bears type of stuff. But I mean, getting back to the, all of this business with the Marlins, and so I had the choice of I gave the kid the choice. I could sell the tickets for $1,500 and give him the $1,500, or we could go to the Game 7 of the World Series. What would you have done in that spot?
Well, what would you say? What was he? Oh, he was
1,500 was a lot of money in '93. Think
14.
about it.
Yeah, I was turning. I was 14 as well. Yeah, I mean,
I figured this was nest egg money.
I would have wanted to go. I mean, like you're like now as an adult, I don't know. I've lost my zest to have to be at an event. I actually enjoy watching it at home as much as I do being there. So I probably would want the money. But as a 14-year-old, like
$1,500 to go to a baseball game. Think about it.
Yeah, I know.
Now it is Game 7 of a World Series involving your local team, and you're going to be sitting right behind home plate.
Yeah, 14, I would have wanted to go 100%. Like I wouldn't even.
The atmosphere, obviously, what was, I mean, just absolutely sick in terms of intensity. It was a blast. The game couldn't have been any more dramatic, and we won. Now I'll say this: a guy named Bob O'Neill, who I worked for when I first signed on at 14 years old myself for Harry M. Stevens, that was Hawkins Souvenirs. He looked at me in the eye one day. I don't know what I was bitching and moaning about money or something. And at 14, and he looked at me and he said, "Money is a perishable commodity. So I mean, it's going to come and go. And if you think back, I mean, this really was MasterCard personified. And it's full deepest meaning, that commercial, because I will never forget being at that World Series game with my son, and the 1,500 would have gone up in smoke. Obviously." Oh, yeah. 25 years ago.
100%.
Wow. Has it been 25 years? Wow, that's pretty incredible. So, I mean, that was great being there. And it was a lot of fun. I've always kind of had an affinity for the Marlins. I wanted to see pro baseball happen here in South Florida. We were just woefully short on professional sports. We did get basketball prior to that and the NBA. And look what happened, right? The Heat. Oh, we're competing with the Dolphins there for being the number one sport in terms of attention given, even though the Dolphins and football will always rule because this is the Deep South, which you wouldn't think would be football-oriented so much, would you, Lubie? Why is football so popular in the South, where you would think it would be more, likely that in a cold weather place you would be a big football fan, no?
I mean, because you can play football. I know you guys.
Who wants to play football year-round down here, man? You're schwitzing your brains out.
I know.
I always thought of moving here so I could play baseball year-round. I really did.
Both. I mean, we played everything year-round when I was growing up. But, like, up north, so you guys play in the cold, but I would never think to play in the cold. Like, we play year-round football and baseball. But I guess that's what
football in the cold was great. I don't know. We can ask John Congemi about that.
I don't know.
You see, but he went from an environment like you grew up in, where it was warm all the time, to all of a sudden having to play football in Pittsburgh. My God.
Yes.
Shoot, that could not have been an easy transition, huh?
No, they chose it, I presume. I mean, he chose it. And Pitt, I guess at the time, was like a really good program.
He followed Marino. What are you talking about?
Like, it was a legit Hugh Green. Like, it was a legit program in the early to mid 80s.
Legit now, right? Didn't they have like the top lineman or something?
Well, they come under your guy Narduzzi. They become a consistent program.
Yeah,
they're not great, but every year they're getting 8, 9, 10 wins.
I wanted Charlie Partridge's defensive lineman won like
Partridge.
He won the trophy that is
the year.
Yeah,
the defensive line coach. I'm sorry, of the year. Like he's really well respected. I mean, I'm curious if he ever gets another shot at a head coaching job.
Yeah, I would imagine you would take it no matter what it was. Anyway, tomorrow too, and before we get into John Congemi here, Mike McIntyre, the FIU coach, who impressed me so overwhelmingly with his enthusiasm at his announcement press conference when they announced that he was going to be the head coach. I've wanted to talk to him ever since. Now, they did cover a couple of spreads for me this year, Lubie.
I know.
In my long engagement with Francesco, which he's now down 10 units with 3 games left. Now, do I let him off the hook and let him go double or nothing? So the whole season is for naught. After, because I mean, I don't know if you're picking a Super Bowl, Well, we don't know who's going to be in it yet, but I'm thinking this is just sickening. I mean, to the point of making me the stench and taste of milk of magnesia just sort of regurgitated its way through my system here. But I'm thinking Philadelphia just wins it all. No? Are we ignoring the obvious here?
I don't know. A lot of people are on that. I don't know. I don't know why I'm weird with the Eagles because they've been consistent all year long. I have this weird thing.
Brock Purdy finally has his Mr. Irrelevant moment and becomes irrelevant as Jimmy Garoppolo replaces him in the third quarter.
Oh, they actually pull him.
Garoppolo supposedly, sniffing around with the possibility of being eligible for this game. I don't know if that's been ruled out yet. All right, we're going to get into all of this with John Congemi, and then we'll stick around for a few minutes after the show with Sean Devon. He talks some NBA as he had kid drop-off, which is always a consideration that you have to take into account when scheduling guests for these shows at this time of the day. So we'll come back with more. John Congemi going to join us. That's brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, mile marker 140 Overseas Highway in Key Largo. Jimmy's the only guy on those pregame shows. It's hard to ignore Howie Long. It doesn't matter what he's saying. You're figuring you're just going to shake your head and say, yeah, Howie, you're absolutely right. He's still intimidating, that guy with the crew cut, man. Guys with crew cuts are intimidating, aren't they? Just are. If he can wear it well. I mean, some guys look stupid with a crew cut.
Especially as an adult. With the adult with a crew cut. Like, how often does an adult have a crew cut?
Where do you go to get one? You go to some fancy salon and go in L.A., right? And he's probably down there on Rodeo Drive getting ready for the show. Going into some place, you got movie stars over here. George Hamilton is having one hair trimmed in the other chair. As famous, makers of hair products. Giuseppe Franco is doing your hair, and you go crew cut. Remember when I had the pictures on the wall at the barbershop of the hideous haircuts?
Yes.
And you're thinking, geez, you make me look like any one of these guys, and I'm going to kill you. All right, John Congemi always looks good. He always looks well groomed. I haven't had a haircut. I'm long overdue for one.
Yeah, I can tell. You're like obsessing over it.
Well, I couldn't do it last week because of the COVID thing. John Congemi always looks good, man. If you wanted to have the guy permanently on the cover of GQ magazine, it'd be John Congemi. He's going to join us next with the Pigskin Playbook, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. We'll give Jimmy credit for being the only guy saying anything relevant on the pregame shows. I'll be back with John in a moment at the Pigskin Playbook. Now that.
The time.
It's 8:03.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Jimmy Johnson joins us here on the program, along with John Congemi and its Dateline Dolphins, of course, Leslie Visser, the lovely and talented one.
Did you trademark that expression, by the way?
Now, how about them Cowboys? I should have.
Oh, you did.
I'm not a businessman, as Larry Calvino will know. Jerry Jones is a businessman. Now, Jerry Jones is the smartest businessman that I've ever been around. He knows how to make money, and he works at it night and day. He trademarked my "How about them Cowboys?"
He trademarked
it.
Of course.
I don't get a penny off those shirts. Not one penny.
The best way to kick off your day is with Defo plus Lubie.
All right, welcome back to the show. Having a good time here on a Tuesday, getting set for the conference championship games. Both scheduled for Sunday, 3 and 6:30, and they're going to start out with the NFC game. The Philadelphia Eagles favored by 2.5. I don't think that line has had any movement since it opened up at 2.5, and they are favored over San Francisco. And then, of course, I think I did see some line change in the Cincinnati game with the money coming in slightly on Cincinnati, but I believe KC is still favored by 1.5. Now that's gone back to its original number in the AFC championship game. We welcome to the show. Always looks great, John Congemi, man. You don't have to worry about going to the barbershop and where they have the 100 ugly haircuts, and you're thinking you literally would strangle a guy. I mean, you just take that strap and put it right around his neck if he gave you any one of those haircuts. You always look good, my friend.
So you're not the only one that thought that when you saw those photos, right? Oh my gosh!
It was like,
right.
Wow,
I was
how ugly is
in
this?
a mere panic last week, Defo. I needed a haircut. I was about 7 weeks out.
Yeah.
The person that ends up cutting my hair is not available, so I had to go back to a barbershop.
Oh,
so
that's
I said, listen, just do my neck and the back, just to kind of, I'm going to a wedding. I don't want you to touch anything else. Just kind of groom me up so I don't look, this bad going to the wedding. And they did a great job. They did a great job.
Yeah, because you look good.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Lubie had any number of times where he could have, taken whoever cut his hair to court for violation of human rights. I mean, it was just he would come into work and everybody, the ladies would try not to say anything because they were polite, and then all of the guys would go, "What the fuck happened to you?" Did you get hit by a truck on the way in here?
I've had those moments, Lubie. I've had those moments.
All right, let's get into it a little bit. The Pigskin Playbook with John Congemi, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. And we had, just another group of wildly entertaining games. The only blowout was the Philadelphia game. So let's start with the Eagles and see what we thought about that one, John, because I don't know. I mean, I'm waiting for the Eagles to come back to the pack, and they keep going ahead and in this case looking more impressive than they had maybe at any time during the season. Giants were coming off that nice win. It's interesting. Part of the equation, of course, after a loss is, what do you do with your star caliber, soon to be unrestricted free agent talent? All right, so they had Daniel Jones there, I guess, 4 years. He was drafted in 2019. Came on enough this year to make you think you'd want to keep him, but do you want to keep him at a high price? And then it's interesting because they sort of committed themselves that they're going to do whatever they can to keep Jones, but not so much Saquon Barkley. Well, I thought it was just as instrumental. I don't know, in any success that the Giants had throughout most of the year. So you had that game, but was it inexplicable, the Giants collapse? Is Philadelphia not good? Are we ignoring the obvious? Should we just give them the Lombardi right now? What do you think?
I think it's matchups. Sometimes, when you're a boxing guy, and matchups and styles and the way offenses and defenses kind of either mesh together to make a great game or one to make it a lopsided game. And the Eagles have had the Giants number all season. It wasn't a fluke that, in the most important matchup of the three, that the Philadelphia Eagles, with rest and with a quarterback that has been playing at a really high level and consistently as he has in Hurts, they totally dominated the line of scrimmage, which made it a lot easier for the skill players on both sides of the football, whether it's linebackers or defensive backs, harassing Jones and slowing down Barkley and really limiting the Giants' offense. To the other side of the football, when you can run it as easily as play action pass, as easily as run pass options for Hurts, you wanted to see and you wanted to test how healthy Hurts was. You looked at the beginning of the game and you go, uh-oh, if you're a Giants fan, because this guy was hitting on all cylinders. And I just think Philadelphia, I didn't know they were, I felt like they were a really good team, but I didn't know if they were going to live up to the 13, 14 wins that they were able to stack up in the regular season, but they are that good and their numbers prove it out. And when the Giants kind of look at how the Giants went about their season, they went in spurts, but they never did anything against the Eagles. You know, they never really did anything against this Eagles defense. So that was a bad matchup to start. And then when you play in a dominating fashion, the spread just gets wider.
Franchise tag is $32 million for a quarterback. Nice work if you can get it. There are any number of guys that could be franchise tagged, including Daniel Jones. Now, this Joe Shane, the general manager, has a lot of very vital, critical decisions to make if the Giants are going to improve. There's naturally optimism there, much more so than there is even here with the Miami Dolphins, who kind of fizzled out a little bit towards the end of the year, losing 5 of their last 6, just barely getting by the Jets in that game, and then being competitive, but losing to a Buffalo Bills team that somehow fell apart at the end of the season. And maybe that was more of an indication of where the Bills were at than the Giants, that playoff game that the Miami Dolphins were involved in the opening round. But, as you look at these guys, I mean, would you go ahead and invest a lot of money in Daniel Jones right now? Or would you figure you kind of piss around, throwing some numbers out there and never quite come to an agreement, say, hey, well, why don't we go one more year in the franchise tag? Does he not need another year to distinguish himself, in your opinion? Would you be jumping the gun by giving this guy like a $160 million contract over the next 4 years?
I think I'd probably take the latter, slow play it a little bit and see where it goes, because you never know what's going to happen in free agency. You don't know who's going to be out there. You don't know if you want to start over again. Starting over again with a young quarterback sometimes is very difficult, because when you take a look at, you go back and you pick guys from the first round, you got a can't miss guy. Well, 3 years later, you're sitting in that same position you were in, trying to tread water and trying to get to the playoffs and trying to make the next step. You've got a guy that when he's been good, he's been really good. He's been better than advertised in terms of when you look around the league and you go, okay, I have our elite quarterbacks, and there's only a handful of those. You've got the next tier, which sometimes Daniel Jones fits into nicely. And if you get better around him at wide receiver, I'm not talking about, Saquon, at wide receiver, you're going to get more production out of him. So that's a tough one for Joe and the Giants right now. First year they make the playoffs. They weren't supposed to be where they ended up this year, and I think they overachieved in Joe's first year as general manager. But in saying that, now the expectation is, well, you're going back again, right? And you got to go back with Daniel Jones because he was the guy that led you there. And I don't know if all the talk about Saquon Barkley not wanting him back, who wouldn't want that guy back? But you can't pay everybody. So it's very difficult for the Giants with the expectation bar now set at playoffs, and anything else is a disappointment.
The inclination to give big money to a running back obviously is one that is thought out badly over especially the last 20 years, where you don't necessarily see high draft picks invested in running backs anymore, and then you don't see this kind of money invested in running backs, and when you have, it hasn't necessarily worked out. I mean,
Defo, just take a look at where the Tennessee Titans are. Watching the playoffs with their high-priced running back. Take a look at Dallas. They really didn't need Zeke, to be honest with
Pollard's
you.
become the better.
He's fallen off, it seems.
Number one,
So Pollard was the big guy, as you said, guys, and so where does that lead you? I mean, just take a look at the model around the league, and it's really 2 guys now, maybe 3.
Yep.
That's the model at running back, because 1, it saves the wear and tear on one guy. 2, it saves the money on the salary cap. When you're just you're either getting a free agent, you're either getting a young running back or a guy that's kind of established, and it works as long as you have, playmaking wide receivers and a quarterback that's going to be there for a while. That recipe works a little bit better.
When you have to pay the quarterback, you have to pay the lineman. You can't pay everyone. And we've seen it. The Dalvin Cook signing was interesting for the Vikings. They've hung around after paying him money. Fine. Mm-hmm. It didn't work for the Panthers. They gave McCaffrey, and then he became their whole team, and they were not better. It didn't work for the Cowboys. They gave Zeke money. That didn't work. Barkley, 25 is actually still pretty young, but he already had major injuries. So and he's had a lot of wear and tear the first few years that you ran the crap out of him. So it's like, you can't afford to put that much money into that position when their offensive line sucks. They need skill position talent. and your quarterback's going to have to get paid in some form. You just can't do it. We see when teams do that, it seems to hold them back.
It does. Yeah, it really does. And it puts him in that cycle for about 2 or 3 years. And you can't get out of it. You know, you can't draft your way out of it. You can't free agent your way out of it. You're stuck with that price tag and that player, and you're crossing your fingers that player is going to be able to line up each and every week. And at running back in the National Football League, that's very hard to do. Or at least if you're lining up, you're as healthy as you can be. You know, sometimes you're lining up and you're just kind of going through the motions because everybody else is banged up as well. So you'd rather spend your money somewhere else. I would think that's the model, the successful model, unless you have a guy that you trust. But that trust only goes as far as one extra play where he gets nicked, and now you're back to square one. So it's probably better to invest your money in quarterbacks, lineman, wide receiver before running back, because you want to get 2 or 3 of those guys that are very similar in styles.
It's amazing what a couple of wins, what a difference it makes in the National Football League. New York is just ramped up with optimism now. A team that was bordering on becoming irrelevant in a crowded New York sports scene, all of a sudden is like, essentially front page news every day. Because, even after getting blown out by the Philadelphia Eagles, which I still think, John, and I'm guilty of this too, a lot of people are just overlooking that level of dominance by the Eagles coming off the bye week and then just smearing the field, literally, as if it was a bagel and cream cheese, smearing the field with the New York Giants, who had played such a tough, well-rounded ball game the week before in Minnesota.
Yep.
You weren't expecting or anticipating that level of bounce off that, where they're out of the game right from the start. It was never a contest. And even as you thought maybe, there might be an outside chance of covering the 7 and a hook, with some late game token touchdowns that the Giants were conceded, they fall even further out of it and lose 38-7. So I don't know. Philadelphia looked pretty impressive to me. The San Francisco 49ers, Lubie's pick to win it all for a while now. Not really compromised badly. In fact, showing improvement numerically on offense with Brock Purdy at quarterback over Garoppolo, who I was never like a big fan. I wasn't in love with Jimmy Garoppolo like all women in the world are, but and maybe some guys. But in this case, as good looking as a John Congemi, this cat, right? Jason Cole has such a man crush on Garoppolo. You would think, that he was speaking for Gisele Bundchen. Who's connected right away with somebody else. You notice that? It's always the pool guy. It's always the pool guy, man.
It's always the pool guy.
Yeah.
I got to come back as the pool guy. Hey, you know what, guys? It's unbelievable how San Francisco, the expectation with Garoppolo was pretty high. I would think, and he was the second guy. He wasn't the main choice. Trey Lance was the guy that was supposed to be the quarterback of this football team. But when you look what Brock Purdy has done, boy, not only stabilized the offense, but in some ways exceeded what they thought he could do, right? Just, distributing the football, getting it out, making good decisions, throwing it away, scrambling when he needs to. But this game is going to be all about defense. And I don't know if you're going to get much offense. It's going to be tough for both sides. But if I had to flip a coin, I would probably take the home team in this one, only because it's not going to be a weather issue. I just think that when you can have the quarterback be 30-40% of your run game, if it goes that way, it's a little bit tougher to defend that run pass option where you're feeding the football and you're freezing linebackers. Remember when San Francisco, that was the first week that we saw glimpses of inaccuracy with Tua when the Dolphins went out there, because they were so active in getting into passing lanes. They were getting deeper. They were confusing, the timing of the Dolphins offense. I think the same thing can happen on the flip side when you take a look at Philadelphia. Yeah, they're going to respect McCaffrey, but they're really good up front. The offensive line for San Francisco, dominant. That's going to be a huge magnifying glass type of thing for guys that played offensive line, defensive line. They're going to be looking in the trenches, because whoever wins that kind of battle is probably going to have the game tilt towards them. So this is going to be a defensive game for sure.
One would think, and yet we've seen teams score points on San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
And I keep thinking of Purdy, and I have the image of the guy on the still rings, right, where he's got the what is that, the Iron Cross they call it,
Yeah.
and the guy's starting to tremble, and he's only got to hold it for like another split second, and then fuck, it crumbles, and it seems like Purdy's been teetering on that ledge. Where you're waiting for him to have the game where he comes back to the pack, and you wake up and realize you were playing Mr. Irrelevant out there at quarterback. Now to his credit, he hasn't made the Bozoic play that does your team in, but he has flirted with it, which I suppose is true now of all quarterbacks, no matter how accomplished they are, including Josh Allen, who started flirting with it all too often, and then Dak Prescott, of course, was a pick machine. But are you thinking? This is where they get him finally.
This is it.
Right? I mean, not that he's going to fold under the pressure. I think he's shown that he can stand up to that. But you know how it goes, John, when a couple of those balls went straight into the hands of defensive backs and they dropped them. And you just call the guys back to the huddle and say, don't say a fucking thing. It's an incompletion. I know he nearly blew the game right there.
It's a bad feeling, guys.
And if this guy could
right,
catch,
though, Defo. It's teetering on. You saw glimpses of it in the Dallas game where you go, "Wow, where was he throwing that one?"
Yeah.
Or that ball.
A couple of weird ones.
Completed. It was completed, but man, it looked funky. It wasn't even. It was a knuckleball kind of flying out there.
Yeah.
And Philadelphia could make you look like Dallas's defense because Dallas defense has some talent up front. They can get after you, from the quarterback spot and move you around, move you off that spot, make you feel uncomfortable. Philadelphia does the same thing. So you're right. If the game just kind of starts the way the Dallas game started, and it's 3 and out, it's incompletions, it's almost
didn't look great. Yeah,
interceptions. You wonder how long that's going to continue. Now they were able to put a stop to it at halftime, kind of turn it around and really zero in on what they wanted to do. It'll be different on the road. Hostile environment, loud communication. Those types of things really creep in and make it a little bit more difficult on the quarterback, especially a young guy who hasn't gone through that at this level.
You can appreciate this, having played the position there on the college level. I don't know if the Pittsburgh fans were, inclined to just turn on you dramatically if you had a subpar performance, and then all of a sudden, Congemi's no Marino. You get all of that circulating. It's actually in the student newspaper on the front page. Congemi no Marino.
Where's
Right.
Right. But people are quick to condemn. But think about the narrative that is essentially sports coverage today. And think about what the narrow margin that it twisted and turned on. I mean, here's Kittle. He makes this amazing juggling circus catch off a ball that I guess was slightly offline. It wasn't the worst throw I've ever seen, but whatever. I mean, it was a little behind the guy, and so it pops up in the air. Now, if it pops up in the air, which a lot of those type of passes do, and bounces off the guy's helmet, and then goes into the hands of a defensive back who takes it back for 6, Dallas wins the game.
Yep.
Dak Prescott is not a dog. Jerry Jones is like, on TV.
Smartest man in the world.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting more coverage than Joe Biden with the documents, everybody's on Dallas and talking about, geez, it finally caught up with this guy, this asshole, Mr. Irrelevant. He finally did his team in. But somehow the guy makes the catch. It goes for one of the biggest plays of the game and, leads to the game-winning touchdown. They hang on and win because their defense is just annihilating the Dallas Cowboys. And then, I don't know. People are blaming McCarthy, for calling this funky last play, which was one of the dullest last plays I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was 75 yards away. I mean, he wasn't going to throw a Hail Mary and be anywhere near the end zone. And we know the Salugi play is, a hopeless waste of time.
I'm getting a safety.
So what do you do there except, some kind of hook and lateral? But it didn't seem like that was like they threw it to the one guy that was covered on the field within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Right. Yeah.
That was crazy. But, Dallas could easily be being talked about today as having, overcome this dynamic San Fran defense. And we'd be talking about Purdy. If that ball bounces off his helmet, Kittle, and into the hands of a defensive back, which it easily could have, the whole story is different, right? Well, and you got Dallas, Philadelphia for the NFC title.
coaches always say, it's one of those things where you go back and you go, well, here are the 5 plays, here are the 6 plays that determine the outcome of the game. All the other ones kind of mix in together, but that was one of those plays.
Yeah.
If it bounces the other way, Dallas could take it the distance. Dallas could get momentum. They could change the outcome of the game, but it doesn't. And those you never know when those plays are going to happen in a football game. So as a player, you're grinding out every 3rd and 1, every 1st and 10, every 3rd and 9. Whether it's a big play in the game or they build it up to be, or you just think that it's another one of those 70 plays you're going to run on offense. You never know which 5 or 6 are going to determine the outcome of the game. And for Dallas, it could have been on special teams with their kicker and the woes that they've been going through.
Wow.
If they
that
turn that
was
around,
a factor, I guess.
Maybe
also.
that gives them momentum. Maybe that boosts, their confidence, because you feel like as an offense, you don't have to get it to the 20-yard line. You don't have to get it to the, inside the 25 to make sure you have a legitimate chance at scoring points. But yeah, you're right. Those types of plays are going to happen again this Sunday, where you're going to have, a tight end for Philly going down the middle, and you may get it, you may not, or you may have a tip ball in the air where if the defense comes up with a huge play, it turns the whole momentum of the game around, or you drop that would-be interception, and it might not lead to points, but it leads to a punt where you flip the field and you score on the next possession, and everybody kind of forgets that play happened, right? So it happens every week and every game and every year, and you just don't know what 5 or 6 are going to turn the outcome of a game.
I mean, it was appropriate. What was it? The 50-year anniversary of the Immaculate Reception? It was not quite that, but darn close, because it turned out to be somewhat of a game clincher and a spread beater, of course, which is what we were concerned about for the San Francisco 49ers. So they come in, I mean, obviously looking great. Their second half defense has been impeccable most of the season. I mean, just to the point of being ridiculous, where they're giving up like 0 points in the second half of almost every game. So that bodes well for them. Highly competitive game. You make the call there, John Congemi. San Francisco, Philadelphia, straight up, and point consideration is laying 2 and a hook with the Philadelphia Eagles.
You know what? I've liked San Fran all year, but I think I'm going to take the Eagles only because I just think they're riding. I think at home, man, that's a different team. And San Francisco is going to be it's going to be tough to score points. And I think I'd rather trust Philadelphia, because there's just something about a playoff game at home in that atmosphere. And if you can get on top, like if you can get a 3-point, 7-point lead, I think it's going to be tough for San Francisco to muster, even though with all the athletes they have, it's going to be tough to muster positive play after positive play, stacking those things together against Philadelphia's defense.
I never thought I would like Jalen Hurts as a pro quarterback. I didn't really like him that much as a college quarterback at Alabama.
He was good at Oklahoma.
He was all right, and I was thinking,
I didn't know if he'd be
how
able
come
to throw
Nick
it
can't
this
get a
well.
quarterback?
I didn't know if he'd be able to throw it this well at this level, and he has. Now, whether that's due to who he's throwing to, the system they're running, they're getting more comfortable with what he's doing. I felt like he got better, as Lubie said, he got better from where he was at Alabama to when he went to Oklahoma, and I think that opened some eyes of players, and that's why he was taken where he was. But he's gotten dramatically better with the system that they're running in Philadelphia and the players around him.
Never thought that he would emerge as not only the starter for the Philadelphia Eagles, but a guy that you would have to consider, at least this year, among the best in the game, most effective in the game. Just didn't strike me that he had that kind of ability, or that his abilities in particular skill set would transform into being a really top-notch pro quarterback. But that's turned out to be the case. I'm with you. So did you think Philadelphia covers the point spread in this game? You're predicting low scoring, so that what would
I do.
make you inclined to go for a low amount of points being the differential. Also.
Yeah, I do. I see Philadelphia. I don't know what the over under is. It's 2 and a hook. You said for Philly.
2 and a hook is the line for Philadelphia. Yeah, and I don't think that's if you like Philadelphia. I don't mind laying 2 and a hook.
Yeah,
you might lose, but I don't
I
mind.
was thinking 24-13, something like that. 21-13, Philadelphia, something like that.
Like my fan, I've been on the Niners.
Over under is 46 and a hook, I believe.
Yeah, that's about
Okay.
where Jimmy is.
Yeah, somewhere.
And
in
the
there.
other game, it's 47, and you have
That is
potentially
huge.
high-scoring teams in that game.
That game, I think, will go over. Even though the defenses have been decent, I think with those quarterbacks and the way that they operate on offense, I think the weather shouldn't be a problem. I think it's going to be cold, but no rain or snow or anything. So,
How old school am I? Did I go to a newspaper and I looked the
I love that you're at
while Lubie's on his phone there?
I love
has it
that.
like an
That's
hour
great.
before me. And this is really yesterday's news, so you have to be very careful about some of the statements you make about point spreads and things like that because they can change. But it seems like I guess the other games back up to 1.5. We'll talk about that in a moment, but I want to talk about Jimmy Johnson's big chill. Lubie is in touch, and right after the season, excuse me, because Jimmy's busy with Fox. They have the Super Bowl this year.
Mhm.
So right after the season, and he's got the book promotion and the whole thing going, and then we're all going to head down here. But I know what we're going to find is spectacular, John, and you're even more well aware of that than we are because you have family ties to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill.
Yeah, I get the report just about every weekend when things are going perfect down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. They were hosting a huge wedding there this past weekend, and I know my brother Dominic and Larry and Amanda, they were running around making sure that every detail was first class because everything you see there, not only with the scenic views, but the way you're treated and the service and the food, everything first class at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. So yeah, that's great news that we're going to get to go down and enjoy that after the season and kind of talk with Jimmy and hang out. And that's just what it is. When you get there, the keys are a place to just go and chill and relax. And Jimmy Johnson's takes that up a couple of notches because you can go into the sports bar, enjoy, the NFC and the AFC playoff games, championship games this weekend. If you're there, you can go down and move, 15 yards south of the sports bar, and you go into the restaurant and have a first class meal, or go out to the tiki bar and just chill and watch the games out there with a t-shirt and shorts and flip flops. So it's just a great place to really put your hair down, relax, and have a cocktail, have something to eat, and just enjoy the scenery. And we do it all the time when we go down. And I've got my ritual. I go right to the tiki bar and just kind of never move. That's the spot for me.
Yeah. I'm with you, John. Back in the day when I had romantic instincts, my first marriage was in Key West. We got married at the Pier House in Key West. Just the two of us there. There was nobody involved. We didn't have any friends. We didn't know anybody. And then 2 times in Las Vegas. The first one was a giant swing and a miss, and then second one we're working on that. But that would I think incline you to have the thing stick if you got married at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill and had the reception there. I don't know. Were they actually married there outside there?
Yeah,
by the bay?
I think
Oh wow,
so.
with
I
the
think
music
so.
and everything. Oh my god,
Perfect spot.
I think and Lubie has romantic instincts surprisingly because he seems so frantic. But I mean, wouldn't you think that you could actually say with conviction and until death do us part, and not anticipate a premature death on the part of either party? I think that would be the place to get married. So that sounded like a very romantic and solidifying type of thing. All right, we'll come back with more. We still have the AFC game to look at and some of the issues that popped up out of the 2 games that transpired last weekend with John Congemi, and then some other issues as well. And we'll come back with more with John Congemi on the Pigskin Playbook here on the Defo Show in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's mile marker 104, by the way, the overseas highway. As soon as you leave Florida City, you start thinking big chill, big chill, big chill, big chill. I never understood the people that would buy those plutonium encased sandwiches at the gas station there in Florida City when they could just jog a little bit further down the road and eat like they were, going to the chair. It's unbelievable. All right, back with more in a moment. Now that, I think we did that. It's 8:35. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine foods served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in Style. And you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. You know, since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Jimmy Johnson joins us here on the program. We do have to clarify one thing. You never had Jim Brown on the roster there at Oklahoma State, because I'm giving you Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders for the last 12 years, but that's how the legend grows. But I do remember covering the Canes back then. And you came in with Sam Jankovic, bringing you in to follow in the Howard Schnellenberg. And it wasn't necessarily met with the kind of fanfare that the people should have realized that they were going to be in good hands.
It was such a trying time for me because, I took the job because I wanted to live in South Florida. And, I left Thurman Thomas. And by the way, if you ever saw A Football Life with Thurman Thomas, he rips me. His mother, they filed a lawsuit. They did. They filed a lawsuit because they said, hey, we want out of that contract. We went to Oklahoma State because Jimmy Johnson said he was going to be there for my entire career. Well, my entire career was short-lived there.
Yes.
And so I left before he ever played it down. But I left him in good shape. Yeah, every place I've ever been, I left him in great shape. Yes. I left Oklahoma State. Pat Jones won about 10 or 11 with Thurman. And then I left the University of Miami and won a couple of championships. And I left the Dallas Cowboys in Switzer, of all people. he won a Super Bowl, going to work at 9 o'clock in the morning and going home at 3 or 4.
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs, thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, they want me to update my computer. I'm going to say remind me tomorrow again.
Remind later, yes.
Didn't want to cut off John Congemi here in a technical disaster on the program, but always good to have John, and we want to get into this whole AFC side of things. But well, we had mentioned this before he came on, because growing up as a kid in New York, we didn't play a lot of tackle football in New York. There wasn't a lot of organized football in New York City. And then even later when I moved to Long Island, I guess we had a junior high team and a high school team. But nobody really wanted to be on them because they never passed the football. But I was an avid, you may consider this, somewhat wussified, but we were very serious about touch football, the way that we played touch football. And there was a lot of it being played in a variety of different fashions, whether it was in the confines of a street where, the entire field was, maybe a few yards wide, or, on some wide open field where you could just run forever and, try and, use whatever speed you had to get to the outside. But, always, greatly enjoyed it. And I loved playing in adverse conditions. I loved it when it was freezing cold out. So we were, wondering how a guy from Florida, what it was like, were you aware of what it was going to be like to play? Obviously, you couldn't have been in cold weather at Pittsburgh. And then what was that experience like for you when you, because I would think that would be a very difficult transition to make, to go from being a warm weather football player to, all of a sudden it's freezing fucking cold out.
It was a little bit of a challenge early on, but it's a lot of it's mental, guys, to be quite honest with you. I think that if you can get over it mentally, like, it's cold, okay? Let's adapt to it, right? But it does take a few reps, because I remember the first couple of times going outside and, I'm looking around and everybody's got t-shirts on and I'm the only one that's got like a hoodie and, a toque on and,
you got a fur coat.
And then once, you start getting the jabs coming your way, like, here comes the Florida guy, go sit, go with all the other Florida guys, whatever. You start to shed, you shed the hat, you shed the long sleeve, you shed the turtleneck, and you kind of get used to it. So it's not something that happens overnight, but you do get used to it.
It's a little bit of a different game, though. I mean, you do make adjustments to how you catch the ball. The wind all of a sudden can make football even go like a knuckler. Even with the strongest of arm passers throwing a ball to you, then it hits that one little drift where it's like, whoosh, and you're thinking, "Wow, who put a gyroscope in that fucking thing?" It's unbelievable. So it can be an adjustment. And that being said, I mean, it was a perfect setting for this Buffalo Bills game, and you couldn't have had any more going in terms of all things pointed to a glorious Buffalo right off into the gray, schmutz that's is over Buffalo all the time. No sunset because you never see the sun. But I mean, they had everything. Hamlin's at the game.
Hamlin's in the thing.
They had survived this slop fest against the Miami Dolphins a week before when they were wrought with emotion and still maybe in a little bit of a recovery mode from the shock of seeing maybe a dead guy on the field, for God's sake. I mean, I don't know that we can underestimate that, because what struck me, I don't know if you found this in your travels around town, John, but all those people that had great empathy for the Buffalo Bills like a week ago went back, if they were Dolphin fans, despising them and being thrilled.
Hating everything about Buffalo.
And they were hoping that Hamlin got hit by a car on the way out of the stadium. I mean, that's how callous we become. But I don't know. Did that come as a great surprise to you that they looked like shit out there? I mean, the previous week, they almost lost to the Dolphins with nobody. So maybe that was an indicator that things had kind of gone into decline. But what happened there? Because a few weeks prior to that, you would have thought, wow, Buffalo, they're dancing their way at least to a Super Bowl appearance.
I don't know if you guys had this feeling, but I'm sitting on my couch, and as soon as the first scene shot from Orchard Park comes on my screen and I see the field and there's just snow blowing like crazy, the first immediate reaction is Cincinnati's going to get destroyed today.
Yeah, yes.
Exactly, with no offensive lineman. I mean,
that was my gut instinct. I'm like, man, they're going to really struggle. Everybody thought that, but the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow, right? I mean, that was a good old fashioned, up front. That offensive line for the Bengals did a terrific job, and Joe Burrow came right out of the gates just smoking. And it's 14-0, and you're going, what? What happened? How did that happen? No, Buffalo's going to come back. But, as I said before, those 4 or 5 plays, 6 plays in a game, Buffalo didn't hit on any of them. And they had their opportunities.
Yes.
Right? Those were game-changing plays. The ball sails over, Stephon Diggs's, outstretched arms that could go for 40, could go the distance. You don't know. But Buffalo missed on their opportunities, and that doesn't happen a whole lot. And over the past maybe month, even though they've been winning games, those plays were connections. Those plays were either they were connections and gave Buffalo a huge spread in the game, or they were missed opportunities by Buffalo and allowed teams to hang around, right? Cincinnati was good enough not only to hang around, they went out to a lead. They said, you know what, we're going to dominate this game. We're going to dictate how this game is played. And they really did from start to finish.
Their offensive line with their starters in there was suspect. I mean, early in the season, we saw this when they got off to an 0-2, and I think, were they 2-4 at one point? A real crummy start. I know they had a tough schedule early in the season. I don't like to use that as an excuse, but we saw that come into play with the wild mood and play swings of the Miami Dolphins, where the schedule was soft and they won 5 in a row and then toughened up a little bit, and all of a sudden you're losing 5. 5 straight. But yeah, I mean, their offensive line was nothing special to begin with. I didn't think. And they had made strides in that direction. I guess that they had found a way to coach around some of the flaws of the guys that made up the 5 guys up front. But now they lose 3 of these guys, and you would have thought those were the hogs in there. I was waiting for John Riggins to get a carry. It was unbelievable. And they just smushed the Buffalo Bills, defensive line and ran the ball like at will in this game, in addition to having a passing game that for some reason, I don't know what Buffalo was doing with Jamar Chase, but they couldn't figure out. They're giving him 20 yards off the line of scrimmage, and he's catching these line of scrimmage passes. Couldn't have made it any easier. And then after that, they finally put 2 guys on him, and he blows right by him. I mean,
Right.
it was amazing. You could never have expected, I don't think, this level of ineptitude on the part of the Buffalo Bills. And then at the same time, the Cincinnati Bengals with the 3 replacement offensive linemen to dominate. Like it looked like the old Packers, right? I want to seal over here and a seal over here.
Yeah.
And these guys, you could see them getting cocky as the game wore on.
It wasn't like they were just small holes either.
Yeah.
It was gaping holes that, Mixon's running through with a head of steam. And I don't think Buffalo, if you look back at that game, there was no penetration when Cincinnati wanted to run the football.
Nothing.
They were hitting it full speed, and they weren't being touched until they got to the second level. And that's something that Buffalo hasn't done with regularity. That's why they've been so good. They've been able to, slow down opposing running games, come up with turnovers, or get off the field to give Josh Allen and that explosive offense more opportunities with good field position. But, every time Cincinnati, if they did stall, Buffalo had 80, 85, 90 yards, looking ahead of them. They really never flipped the field on the Bengals, and Cincinnati cashed in early. They went right to the woodshed early, and it was 14-0, and you're going, uh-oh, if you're a Buffalo fan, that made you nervous, especially watching what happened to the Dolphins. Last week when the Dolphins come out after halftime, they get a defensive score, they go up in a game, and Buffalo's barely hanging on to get to that round. So, yeah, that was, Buffalo wasn't hitting on all cylinders going in, but me personally, I still thought Buffalo, like I do for Philadelphia this week, that's the same sense I get. Philadelphia is going to be really good at home. Buffalo is going to be really good at home.
Yeah,
and that's why you had that, when the scene set came on, you're going, oh, snow, wind.
Perfect.
Buffalo's going to, just crush Cincinnati. And I couldn't have been more wrong.
No, it was total domination, too. I mean, I don't even know if the final score there, what was it, 27-10? That was an indicator.
It was irrelevant. It was almost
how
like
thorough of a beating it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, right from the very outset. And then every time when Buffalo did score, Cincinnati came right back and marched it right down the field like it was nothing. And, they settled for a couple of field goals in spots where they could have really extended that lead out there. But all right, so and have you ever seen anything as cool, John? I mean, having thrown a lot of footballs in your lifetime at all different levels, including the pros, as cool as that video of they talk about Joe Burrow being Joe Cool. I don't know that I've ever seen anything cooler as when he's in warm-ups and he flips the ball about 50 yards, he's by his own goal line out to the sidelines there, and he's throwing it to a guy who's just kind of jogging under it. But then he does a complete 360 spin. And did you see this clip yet?
I did. I saw that. Yeah.
I mean, how cool could you be? This guy's going into what should be a brutal physical, game with no offensive front whatsoever. It looks like he's going to be looking up at the lights from the opening moments. And cool. I mean, couldn't be any cooler than to have thrown that pass there.
No, he kind of embraced the elements, the underdog situation that he was facing with, as you mentioned, multiple offensive linemen not playing. And I think that, he has this confidence in this air about him that he's going to be okay. Like, just follow me, guys. We're going to be okay. And it really showed through on the road against the Bills. And I didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't have that game playing out that way. But you're right. That clip of him throwing the football and just kind of pirouetting around and letting his body momentum take him, all the way around in a circle.
And it's complete, like 50 yards.
Right. The chase on the sidelines. It was visions of things to come, really, in the game. So, You know,
It was like the Michael Jordan, commercial, off the backboard, off this, off that. That sort of thing. All right, so that sets them up. I mean, you would have to think, obviously, in there with a big shot against what could be a compromised Kansas City team. Kansas City, I thought it was going to be on its way to a convincing victory over Jacksonville. Mahomes gets hurt, clearly compromised. He still managed to complete like 2/3 of his passes. Still managed to find Kelsey, I guess, and some of the other guys that have been making this Kansas City offense click, and yet they still managed to be in a close game and lose to the point spread. The Kansas City Chiefs, after a piece of strategy. The professor, he must have lost a bunch of money on this, and he doesn't even bet the NFL because he was screaming that that's the old Mike Tice move, where you go for the field goal and then hope to save yourself 30 seconds. And recover an onside kick and have enough time to go in there and maybe end up with a Hail Mary somewhere and get the game time touchdown. Now, you do need the 3 points somehow, and you still will need to recover an onside kick. But for those of us that were laying the points in that particular ball game, in this case, it was
TVs.
9 with Kansas City, and they're up by 10.
Yeah, 10. Game's over. They're not going to win.
I don't want to hold back, but you're screaming, this fuckhead's going to kick a field goal?
That's exactly what I thought.
Doesn't he need the touchdown too? They're close. How do they know? I mean, I guess you're going to be in field goal range if you recover the onside kick. But I was amazed. Only 3 onside kicks have been recovered by the kicking team all year this year.
And one of them, I think, was the Jacksonville kicker, if I'm not mistaken. I think
Could
the
be.
announcers were saying that. So I thought the same thing when they, you're always trying to add, okay, how do we do this? How do we manage the end of the game when you need 2 scores, right?
Yeah.
It's always the prudent thing to do, but on the other side, I always go, "Oh, what was the spread?" I always start looking at my phone, going,
I mean, a coach should take that into consideration.
There's people going, yeah, exactly. They should have a meeting about that, right?
Money should be refunded. I'm fully in favor of all money's on the Chiefs, which I rarely bet because they're always, failing to the point spread. But I mean, in this case, I thought they were 10 points better at least than Jacksonville. I really did.
Well, give Jacksonville credit too. This is a team that's come on.
Yeah.
Who would have, losing record after losing record, season after season. They try to bring in, coach after coach, and I think they hired the right guy. I was hoping before McDaniel was hired for the Dolphins that
Tebow
was the guy that was going to be hired here for the Miami Dolphins. I really respect the way. Yeah. He coaches. I think he gets it on offense. He's been there. He played it. He knows it. And he gets good people around him. And he's got a young quarterback that can sling it. And even though, he had a couple turnovers in the game, that's going to happen. There's days that's going to happen. But they've got a good nucleus of a team there in Jacksonville. And they proved it this year. They turned it right around. And guys that were young and as rookies in their second year with the quarterback and the running back at ATN, and they've got a wealth of talent on that team.
Who would you rather be going into next season? The Jacksonville Jaguars or your Miami Dolphins?
That's a tough one. I still think I'd take Miami, but Jacksonville probably has a better chance of going in that division. I just don't think, even though the Bills didn't get to the Super Bowl, didn't get to where they were supposed to be, and the Dolphins in 3 games this year, a total of 4 points separates the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins, right? They did close the gap. They closed the gap, the Dolphins, and they have a much better roster in terms of talent moving forward. But in the division that Jacksonville plays in, I'd probably rather be the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they certainly made a large ascent this year from being one of the real crap teams in the league and, overcoming the stench that will forever permeate Jacksonville if it didn't have one there already. That was, I mean, unless you're playing golf there at TPC, the Sawgrass, what's the point of going to Jacksonville, John? I mean, did you ace that water hole? Did you tell us you aced the water hole there, 17?
No. I never at TPC Sawgrass. I was just happy to hit that green, to be honest.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Hit it and bounce off, which I would be happy with a line drive, a sculling line drive.
Well,
hit it and
I've
skid
done
it over
that
the
once
back.
as well. I've done that once as well.
The kerplop into the water halfway across the lake is always especially embarrassing. And if you're a pro, I mean, there's a gallery there. It's really, not something that you want to do. All right, so we get to Kansas City with high ankle sprain. I mean, everybody's rolled an ankle at some point that's played even recreational sports. That can be a 2-week proposition to come back from, even for a young guy. Mahomes did come back into the ball game. I mean, was he himself? No. If you take that component out of his game, are you not throwing a pretty nice advantage, a significant advantage to the Cincinnati Bengals defense that Mahomes is not going to be scrambling out of plays?
I think
And isn't that where that's where his so-called magic works? Even his bonehead plays are created out of stuff that's outside the pocket, where he's run around a couple of times like Fran Tarkenton.
Yeah, I'm watching that game, guys, and I'm saying, Mahomes is at some point it's going to be more of a liability to the offense because he's got to be in shotgun to hand the football off because he's not going to be able to get under center, and he's going to hit the hip of a running back pretty soon. Being able to hop over and not get the ball where it needs to be, you get a fumble and the game turns, right?
Sure.
So whether they're going to be able to be at full strength, he's not going to be. How are they going to manage the game for him? That's going to be difficult. It was good that I couldn't even believe Chad Henne was still on the roster, but what a great job that he did.
Unreal.
Going 98 yards, and that was the difference of the game, really. I mean, when you take a look at the score, they end up getting points out of that. They drive 98 yards for a touchdown, get the extra point. They win 27-20 eventually, but at least he got some playing time. That's tough to do, if you're asked to go in and middle of the second quarter, hey, Patrick's not going to do well. At least you have some playing time the week before where you feel like, you know what, I can do this. And not only the fans, but the guys in the huddle know that you can do it. That's probably the most important thing.
You're making funeral arrangements if you're looking at Chad Henne coming in for Patrick Mahomes at the 2-yard line in a tight ball game against a team that, as you said, John, has been on the come and made this dramatic return to form in the second half of their game the previous week when it looked like they were finished against a talented Charger team. You're figuring you're dead. Yeah,
he throws it on first down.
Yeah,
he comes out and they fire it on first down. It wasn't
the ball.
like they just handed the football off and
beautiful
plays and punt and see how Patrick's doing.
Yeah,
they went right down and scored. So, gosh,
Chad Henne, exactly. His last pass was 2009, I think, with the Dolphins. He had a check down where he threw one backwards to some nondescript running back, and the guy got hammered, and lost 3 yards on the play. And everybody was screaming, "What? Throw it down the fucking field!" I saw him out. I guess he came in from Mahomes for some reason a few weeks ago when I was watching the Chiefs game, and I swore, John, I thought it was his son. I've been saying this. I said, "Wow, isn't that cool, man? Chad Henne had a kid, and he's in the league, but it's Chad, and he's been there 15 years."
Yeah.
We mentioned this earlier. Just a final thing before we get your thought on how this championship game is going to play out. But you do have coaches like Brock Purdy plugged in for Garoppolo, who was plugged in, as you were saying, and we were talking about this. Certain coaches can plug in quarterbacks, and Andy Reid is another one of those guys. He made a lot of schmeck quarterbacks, including AJ Touchy-Feely, a lot of money by plugging them in spots, and you're saying, wait a minute, man, this guy's just as good as a starter. And he's been doing it, his whole career, and that's a great trait for a coach. I think that does say something about coaching that not everybody can do that. And just substitute a guy, no matter what skill level, experience level, and have him come in there and be effective. It's a good thing.
No,
all right, what do you think? Yeah, what about this game?
I
Since he seems to have all the momentum on their side, and maybe a compromised Mahomes, and we've seen Mahomes fail in his spot now 3 times to the Bengals. So what do you think?
I thought this is a lot like the Philadelphia game. I was on Kansas City all year. Kansas City is going to be the team. It's going to be Buffalo and Kansas City. Never giving consideration to Cincinnati, right? So this week, San Fran, all week, I feel like Philadelphia is going to win the game. Going into this without the injury, I think Kansas City is going to win the game. But now you add that in, I really look towards Cincinnati to do something. They have their number, yeah, but they're just as good. When you add in that Mahomes isn't going to be 100%. Boy, it could be it's a toss-up.
Changes
for me.
Everything.
Yeah, I think I would go with Cincinnati. They're riding some momentum. I don't know if their offensive line is going to be able to hold up and play the way they did 2 weeks in a row against Kansas City. I think they were able to play well, mask it, do whatever. They had one of those days against Buffalo when Buffalo didn't have their offensive A game. I don't know if Kansas City is going to be able to have their offensive A game if Mahomes is 70%, 60%.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be closer than that in terms of being able to be mobile, be able to extend plays, be able to make plays when there's nothing. And I think Cincinnati is going to play him tight and find a way to win.
This is, I don't know if it's good or bad, John. We agree on both games.
Yeah, that's bad. Usually bad.
Bad for our public. Yeah,
Yes.
it's bad for the public.
That's when you
sure.
just sit on the bench. You just kind of sit on the bench.
I'm thinking since he has the momentum going, Mahomes compromised. You need Mahomes to make one or two of those fluke plays that he orchestrates during the course of a game.
I'm saying this. You got to remember the immortal words of my dear friend who's no longer with us when he used to ask me advice on games. 1-800 go the other way. That's what he called me. So
anti-Mike Mayo theory.
Just a little advice.
John, you're the best, man. Thanks so much. Excellent stuff as always. It flew by. Brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. We'll get down there right after the season. It's going to happen.
Sounds great, guys.
It's been confirmed. Lubie's been in touch. He's been diligent about this because we don't want to stiff these guys on the live show. And we want to go down there frequently if we can. So we'll see you then, John. Thanks so much.
Sounds good, guys. Enjoy the week.
Pigskin Playbook, John Congemi. Always a blast having John on the show. All right, we're going to try and connect here and extend the program a few minutes at least with Sean Devaney of Heavy.com. He is a basketball writer with a zillion years experience. So wasn't he AP for a long period of time, Associated Press? Was that Devaney? I want to say yes to that.
With...
We had some guy in New York that was with the AP.
AP is Brian Mahoney.
Yeah, he's very good also.
Getting him on. He was with Forbes Sports, and he wrote for...
But he was with somebody for a long period of time before. Sporting News. That was it. Very reputable organization. Where are they today? Remember you used to you missed this whole era of being a sports fan, but you couldn't wait to get your hands on the fucking Sporting News.
Well, Sports Illustrated was a big deal when I was growing up.
Sports Illustrated was still big. I mean, it was so wonderful. I mean, I think it might have inspired me to want to be a sports writer. How about that, Lubie? All of those great articles in Sports Illustrated. So well written, and the photography. That Walter Hughes, man, he was good, huh? And he used to write about everything, too. All of my favorites. Boxing, horse racing, very illustrated, well illustrated. And, the pictures were fantastic. The writing was brilliant. It was good stuff, Sports Illustrated. And then what? Sport Magazine was around for a while. They competed, but weren't quite as good. And where's Sports Illustrated at today? People still...
No, it's not a thing.
Acknowledge him?
I think it exists as an entity, but no one gives a shit about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Maybe if you go to like an old dentist, he's got one sitting around there on the counter there with, some kids' magazine. All right, coming back with Sean Devaney in a moment. Now that.
The time.
Stick around, people. It's 9:03. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant. And you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in Style. And you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
I have sinned against you, my Lord.
The only way to get your morning started is with Defo, joined by Lubie, right here on the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show. Good to be with you. We extended into a little overtime here as we wanted to get a chance to speak about the NBA with one of our favorites. Guy's been a long-time friend of the program, and we hope that he considers us a friend of his. Sean Devaney, Heavy.com, with us, longtime writer for the Sporting News, been covering the NBA forever, and always does a great job, and it's a pleasure to have him on the show. Sean, how are you? Thanks so much for joining us here.
I'm doing well, Defo. Thanks for having me.
All right, who's this Japanese guy that the Lakers got? Rai Hachimura?
He was from Gonzaga.
Yeah.
He was good in college.
You know, a number 9 pick in 2019. Just really hasn't found a place in the league. Is he a 3-and-D guy? Is he more than that? He really had a hard time, really defining where he fits in the league. They got Kyle Kuzma, and they've sort of committed to him, and that's left Hachimura out in the cold a little bit. He could get an extension in the offseason. He was upset about that. So the Lakers make the trade for him, and he'll close out the year. Now, they're saying they want to keep him long-term. We'll see how that works out. He's only 25 years old, still has some potential, but it's a pretty wild swing from the Lakers at this point. Hard to say that this is the guy who's going to somehow save their season.
I still feel a little bit of Jewish guilt about this, where I traded some younger kid 3 Harry Cheedy baseball cards for a Mickey Mantle rookie card in mint condition, taking advantage of this kid's lack of knowledge about who the Mick was, and thinking he was getting 3 for 1. Well, what are 3 second-round picks worth? Are they the equivalent of the 3 Harry Cheedies? What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, exactly. And the Lakers have gotten themselves into a situation where, they don't want to trade their first rounders because there's a good chance those will be valuable. And when you're saying that our first rounders are going to be valuable in a couple of years, what you're saying is we might very well be terrible in a couple of years. Yeah. And so they don't want to give away those first rounders. So they're trying to find players they can bring in for second rounders. And they've been trying to do that pretty much all winter. And Hachimura was the best they could come up with. They've had a lot of talks. I mean, they've been very, very active in terms of trying to get blood out of a stone, because there's just not much on that roster that other teams want, and whether the Wizards would either keep Kendrick Nunn, who was the other player who went to involved in the deal, went to Washington. Even that is unsure. But that's the Lakers are trying to get something from nothing at this point.
Kendrick Nunn, who we saw develop here with the Heat, has become the ultimate NBA carpetbagger, man. He's all over the place. He's always the guy that's thrown in with the 6 second-round picks, in a deal. Yes. All right, now the networks, obviously, Sean Devaney, would want nothing better than to see the Lakers be in contention and have a chance to win a title. And 38-year-old LeBron, who's having, MVP type of season, just a remarkable year. We don't know. I mean, is Anthony Davis more fragile than the English patient? I mean, if he comes back, obviously, with this Hachimura, and Russell Westbrook was having a revival of sorts this year and was becoming a functional member of that team. Can the Lakers, I mean, it sounds like a stupid question. Obviously, they could become a factor. But do you see them developing and evolving as a factor and maybe even being capable of making a playoff run in the West?
Yeah, it certainly is possible, with the play-in especially, you're going to have more opportunities. They've played much better since the rough start they had. They were 13-20, and they've gone 9-5 since. They've been better. When Anthony Davis has played before he got hurt, he was really playing pretty much as well as he's played.
They were coming around.
Yeah, and things were looking better for them. The question is, is he going to come back and be that same kind of guy? Is he going to be a guy who's worried about getting injured, which is what we've seen a lot of from him in the past. So, if he comes back and he's playing the way he did when he went out, then yes, you've got to give them a chance. Part of the problem that they're looking at, though, is that, the bottom of the West isn't that bad. and Oklahoma City's been playing really, really well, and they could be a factor. They could factor into that into that play-in. The Suns have been really disappointing, but you got to figure they'll turn it around. Minnesota, so you've got a bunch of teams at the bottom there that are going to be hard for the Lakers to catch, even if they get Anthony Davis back and start playing better.
Don't mean to dwell on the Lakers, but one last thought. Will LeBron James, who still is playing at an unbelievable level at 38 and shows no sign of necessarily wear and tear, will he not only play with Bronny, but will he pull a Gordie Howe and play with his grandchildren in the NBA? Is there any chance of that?
I mean, the numbers that he's putting up now aren't that far off from when he was, 30 or 29. So,
amazing.
Why not? He could certainly do at least a Tom Brady and play to his 45.
All right. Many other things to look at. Is Boston clear-cut the best in the league? I mean, they have the best record. What do you think? Did they sustain this the rest of the way? And what does it say about this first-year coach?
Yeah, I mean, they've gotten themselves right in terms of their defense. They came out and they were just shooting just on fire, really, for the first 25 games or so. And it was like they were shooting 40% from the three-point line. Everybody was making. They weren't playing a whole lot of defense. That sort of ground to a halt. And they've been able to revert to the team that they were last year, which wins with the top three defense, and could still outscore when they need to. So yeah, they've made the transition back to sort of what they should be. A lot of it's going to depend on is Robert Williams going to stay healthy, which has been a pretty active question over the last couple of years. Can Al Horford hold up at age 37? That's going to be a question as well. Can Malcolm Brogdon, who's been a fantastic addition for them off the bench, can he hold up? He's had trouble with health in his career. So a lot of their issues right now are just a matter of, okay, can we stay healthy? Everybody's got that question, though. That's something that factors in for everybody. So, knowing that, then yeah, you'd have to have them as a pretty clear-cut favorite at this point.
Sean, when last we spoke, we talked about the Miami Heat, and you were pretty emphatic about the fact that the Heat need to make a move to get into that next place. And it's interesting. It was like they were reading your mind, because I saw within that day, I think you reported that the Heat were not only specifically targeting John Collins, but just overall, the Heat have been one of the more aggressive teams as we approach, the trade deadline or the ending of trades in the NBA. Since then, I've seen you continue in that vein. I've seen the Heat rumored with various either guards, Collins again, or just, again, the Jay Crowder thing is hanging out there. When you look at Miami, and they have settled down a little bit, they are getting their guys back. They're now sitting around that 6th spot and in striking distance of anywhere from the 3 to the 5. What are feasible things for the Heat to do? Because the John Collins thing is just hanging out there, but it feels like there's no traction there. What do you feasibly think the Miami Heat are able to pull off in the next few weeks?
Yeah, if they're going to do something, look, they're going to do something. I think that, even though they played better, they stabilized, as you say, they're getting their guys back. I think they know that if they want to win a championship, and this team is not getting any younger, that they're going to have to add something that they're not going to get there with what they have right now. So they're going to do something. So do they do something major, or do they do something minor, or maybe slightly above minor, an adequate move? That's going to be the question. If they do something major, it'll involve Kyle Lowry. Because he's got the $30 million contract. If you can work out something with for D'Angelo Russell, that's been the guy who they sort of targeted. Minnesota doesn't want Lowry, but there's ways to possibly get a 3-way deal if you can find somebody who's interested in Lowry. So that's probably that's going to be the home run move, is something involving Lowry and bringing in another major player. If there's going to be a double up the middle kind of move, that mediocre move, but then that's like the Jay Crowder thing. If you can make a deal where you wind up not giving up too much and you wind up getting back Jay Crowder. I think that's in their back pocket. I think they feel like they can make that deal if push comes to shove, but they want to see if there's something bigger in the meantime before that deadline comes.
Sean Devaney, Heavy.com. You can find his work. Outstanding job covering the NBA for years and years and years, including going back to his days at the Sporting News, which, as I was saying, I mean, how times have changed. We couldn't wait to get our Sporting News back in the day when I was a kid growing up. I mean, all the stats in there was just, and we would memorize them. It was fantastic. And, now the entire, slate and the genre of sports journalism has changed and changed dramatically. It never ceases to amaze me. You mentioned unloading Kyle Lowry, which I would consider to be at $30 million a year, a massive amount of dead weight. And like that nondescript tag team partner that comes from those, tag teams out of the Midwest that's just in there to take a loss to the local guy. But, should Sam Bankman-Fried be running the NBA? If you can swing a deal where you can unload and exchange dead weight like that, I mean, how do teams do that? Where, you're taking on a guy that Pat Riley has already thrown in the towel on and is deemed to be a disappointing stiff. And you're going to trade for him and pay him $30 million. Yeah, you look at some of these guys, and it's insane that they can unload them.
Yeah, the only way that you can do it is A, give enough goodies that go along with it, or B, take on even more dead weight. So if you can catch a couple of draft picks to Kyle Lowry, now it's a different story. Or if you've got a team that's willing to take back the $30 million he's owed for next year, then you're probably going to be taking back, $80 million over 4 years. So that's the trade-off. And it's always been that way in the NBA. That part of the issue is just swapping dead weight. That's usually what happens at this time of year.
Very expensive dead weight. I mean, how much is Ben Simmons the lowest? The largest amount of dead weight that you could have on your roster at this point? Do like $50 million a year for the next several years?
Yeah, and he's got right. He's and he's got another 4 years left. So that's probably the toughest contract. But even he got traded, right? I mean, he wasn't playing. Yeah. He had that contract, and he still got traded. So you can always find a spot for your dead weight in the NBA.
Somehow, trades involving James Harden are always seemingly preposterous. Also, there's always a lot of dead weight involved in that, including what now might be. Harden himself looking to go back to the Rockets. All right, Sean, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you taking time, to come back and be on an extended version of the show. We'll talk to you again real soon as things continue to, develop in the National Basketball Association. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the show next time.
Okay. Nice, guys.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks a lot. Sean Devaney, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Very good. How many bottles of wine do you think, I meant to ask him, Popovich consumed last night after giving up 147 to Portland? He always used to say that, we have that famous clip from him where he was pissed off about, the non-foul call there. And, he just lost Kawhi Leonard for the series in the series against Golden State where they were winning the first game. And what was it? Jean Pachula.
Yes.
Comes out there like a zombie. Gets in the way of Leonard's landing, and no call is made because they're at Golden State, and everybody wants Golden State to beat the San Antonio Spurs. And he said, I'm going to go home and have a bottle of wine. How many do you think he needed last night? He had to crack open, I was popping a lot of corks on that Lafitte Rothschild that he stashed away there. Very nice. 147. And that wasn't even the highest total of the
night, yeah.
Defense wins championships, right, Lubie? And obviously, San Antonio and Detroit aren't going to be in contention for any titles anytime soon. All right, a lot of fun being with you. Thanks. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox coming up 12 o'clock today. We'll see. The Mayo Man was a little disoriented yesterday, was he not? Seemed, when he's home, he's out of sorts there. What is it? Taking care of his mom? What do you think it is? Just being near a refrigerator?
Yeah, these meetings for the app that he's involved with, and it's for some reason it's right before we do the Lunchbox, and
it comes out a little bit zombified. Yeah,
I don't know.
All right, well, we'll see what happens here.
We'll see what Mayo can get at 12 today.
Sure, it's good with the ex-wife. I can't say that I'd be inclined to have like a number of meals with either of my ex-wives. One for certain, and the other one We've had a few Thanksgiving and holiday dinners, but that's not the
You
same.
moved on to other wives. That's the thing. Like, whatever your relationship is with your ex, once you have a new partner,
Yeah, they don't want you to have anything to do with the previous
like
wife.
Nails maintained his bachelorhood this entire time, whether it was on purpose, just because, whatever it is. So that allows, and she has too. So it allows him to have.
To put it in Mike Mayanki terms, he's maintained his marital leverage. Right. He still has leverage because he hasn't married anybody else yet. Yes. I think they get back together. I believe that's going to be the fairy tale ending to this over a stone crab. No?
Over a stone crab. It seems like, and he doesn't, we've never gotten into
She seems to have moved on permanently. I'm not sure
it seems like the little things that I feel like bothered her.
Yeah.
She hasn't forgotten them. She's happy and it's fine.
No, women never do. Yeah.
Exactly. So
they never forget.
And that's true.
10 years ago, you could have said something that you didn't even mean, right? 100%. You weren't even talking to her. And she still holds it against you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it pops up. You're like, oh, what the fuck are you talking about?
Like, I don't even,
why would anybody be thinking about that today? Anybody. All right, we got to run. It's been a pleasure being with you. Thanks for sticking around. If you stuck around for the overtime portion of the program, I hope you found Sean Devaney to be his usual informative self. And we will see you at 12 o'clock today with Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. As we leave, you know that.
The time.
It's 9:21.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.